Hey almighty listeners, and welcome to episode 67. This week we have the pleasure of being joined by Baz Watkins, aka Anfarius, and he's going to join us through the hobby desk all the way through to Into the Wilds, where we'll be talking about sculpting and the incredible work he does bringing old characters back to life. Otherwise we'll be going through hobby desks, where I'll talk about some Space Wolves, and Dan's going to talk about the various projects he's been working on, and Baz is going to tell us a little bit about what he's been getting up to with the Deceiver. We move on to 40k and Age of Sigmar. We'll discuss the incredible releases that we've seen there, and then in the community section, Baz is going to give us the lowdown on some of our favourite pieces that he's done. Some really interesting tips, especially on how to do teeth. I found that incredibly interesting. And then Into the Wilds, we talk about aliens and marshmallows, which is a strange combination, but I'll let you wait and find out what that's about. So grab some refreshments and join us for episode 67. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 67, and this time we are joined by the sculpting legend, Baz Watkins, aka Anfarius. We're going to hear the story about how that came about now, I think.
You want to hear the story?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, okay, we'll get in early. Right, okay, well, the simple story is... I was trying to get, I think it was a handle for a game, just a name. And I was speaking to a good friend on the phone. And he mentioned the name Amphiarus, which is, like I say, it's like a historical kind of like legend, warrior type thing. And I misspelt it. I misheard him. And Amphiarus is what it was. But Anfarius, I'm happy either way, because, like I say, I don't even know how to spell it properly, so I'm good.
It's very close to Alfarius.
Yes. That's something that people do say a lot, and I'm happy for it to be as close to that as possible.
Brilliant.
It's Alfarius in disguise, which is very apt, isn't it?
Yes.
So, I'd love to hear what you've been working on over the last coming couple of months. We noticed a rather spiffing Necron Deceiver, which is such an old model, but you're just bringing it back to life, dude.
Oh, thank you, man. It's something I was approached by 40 Hours, 40k, and Red Eagle Studio, Bobby, and they simply reached out and said, would I be interested in kind of like lending a hand? And it's such a good cause. It really is. And I would, especially nowadays, I think it's really important, that we focus on mental health. And I just thought, you know what? Yes. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to draw the Deceiver. And like you say, it's kind of like, it's a tired sculpt. I don't like to speak ill of Games Workshop sculpts in a sense, but it's tired, and, I thought we could maybe give it a bit of a facelift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you kind of gone, well, when you look at a screenshot of it, we've got one up on the screen now. We've gone almost to video without it being, but there's virtually nothing you haven't done something to on it. I work a lot off of artworks, iconic artworks. Mainly in the codexes, right? I think everybody looks through a codex and you'll see an image and it sticks with you pretty much out of every codex, but you've all got your favorite codex and you all have your favorite pictures from that codex. And this is kind of one that stuck with me. There's a distinct one of a Nightbringer. He's flying over a cityscape. That looks amazing. I'd love to tackle that one day. But the Deceiver was this one. I've kind of changed the facial features a bit more, and I'm waiting on some new hands to give him a really creepy look. So he's going to have some nice clawed fingers, which I think I'm going to steal off of now forgive me, I think it's like, it used to be called a Strigoi vampire. Flesh quartz. Yeah,
is that the ones? There we go. Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. So I think there's one on a zombie dragon. So I think I'm going to take the hands off of him.
Oh yeah.
And he's going to be kind of like proper creepy. And then then once we're past that, I'll try and remember what end of a brush to use to paint it. So
I like is that a piece of brass sheet that's coming up round in there?
It is.
That's
it is.
Then sculpted on top of, to give that, to keep him up, I suppose, being a key thing.
Yeah, well, it's fortunate he's made out of fine cast, so he's quite light. So with this piece, it was a case of I needed to obviously keep him levitated. That's the kind of look he has. So in behind that brass sheet is a paperclip, essentially, that I've drove up all the way up through to his calf muscle, in through his toe. Sounds painful, right? But through his toe, up through into the calf muscle. So that's got a kind of nice, maybe half an inch that's pinned in through, and then I've gone straight into the base. The brass sheet, I implore everybody to do this. The brass sheet is a tomato puree tube.
Nice.
Ah, okay.
So you'll cut it. Now be careful, because obviously you get some proper sharp corners. It's a thin metal. So cut it open, flatten it out, and then obviously clean it down properly. And just lightly sand to take all the paint, all the covering, all the protective layers off the top. And then you've got yourself the brass sheet for days. It's cost you nothing anyway. So it's a really useful thing for cloaks, tabards, terrages, is it? Yeah, is it terrages? You know, the little flappy things around the arms and around people's waist normally. So, I couldn't recommend that enough. It's a free thing, really. I assume everybody uses tomato puree, or if they don't, it costs £1.
It's often used for making pizzas around here. So
it's quite an extreme way to tackle gap filling on a fine cast model, mind you know. I was just thinking there's a meme in there somewhere, isn't there?
Well, you know what? I think, honestly, ironically, you've actually hit my origins. So I started off by filling gaps.
Yeah.
I'm asked quite a lot about the smoothness, how I keep it smooth. I actually learned that from filling a bazillion gaps on older Forge World models, because they are notorious for not getting the right joins. Or if you're old enough, you've worked with metal models.
Yeah.
Worked with them, fine well that when you put something up against each other, it's not going to fit. So
the old metal dreadnought.
I could. There's so many that you could name, but it's specifically if it was anything organic, if it was like a musculature and they were fitting together, there was no chance. So that's how I really came across, green stuff myself, and it's kind of just blossomed from there, really.
Wow,
the really face is amazing on the Deceiver. It's really superb. I always kind of felt the Deceiver was a bit, in my mind, was a bit like Sauron when the younger. Yeah. So he's not overtly, doesn't look nasty. It almost looks a little bit comical, but he's twisting everything.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think it's very kind of like with the original sculpt. It had a kind of like a Joker, a jester appeal to it.
Yeah.
Which at the time it was wonderful. Everybody kind of loved when the gods themselves kind of came out, and it was amazing. But I think just a hint at the fact that his nature
turns nasty.
Yeah. He's always got that kind of like long story, like long view on things, and he's just looking to manipulate. Irrespective, he's just looking to manipulate. So that's hopefully the kind of vibe that we're going with this guy, and it will follow through on the paint. I hope. I've got a plan, but it doesn't mean it's going to work.
So with the face then, because I noticed this about the Khorne Lord that you did as well, where you've taken an existing model and then sculpted over the face.
Yeah.
So is that, do you just sculpt straight on over the face, or do you cut bits back, or, what's the thinking there?
So with faces, I'll just say it right now. Obviously, what you see isn't necessarily my first attempt at a face, in the sense of I've probably tried the Deceiver's face about 3 or 4 times. it's not something I kind of go, yay, and put it on and that's it. But you're right. What I do is I actually shave back all the features. So I'll take the cheekbones back, allows you to build expression. You know, when you're smiling, they're raised. When you're shouting, they're also raised, but obviously you've got a lower jaw. So that kind of gives you the kind of ability to drive an expression in, I think. But it also means that I don't have to, right now, whilst I'm still learning, is to tackle, you know, eye position, nose position. It's all there for me. I've just shaved it back to a point where I go, I think I can build on top of this now. So yeah, you're very much correct. It's a case of I'll just shave it slightly back. I don't cut it back. What I do is I just use the flat of the knife to scrape it back.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that gives you more control. And then, you know, with the angry characters, especially the likes of the Corn Lord.
He's very angry.
Yeah, he's very angry, but I find it much easier to do. The subtleties are the difficult parts.
Yeah.
So the angry bits, it means, you know, you can kind of put the creases in around in the eyes, the frown on the brow, and it's instantly recognizable as somebody, you know, that's obviously a little bit angry. And then it depends. And then it depends how far you want to push it, really, you know?
Yeah, I always think the Slaughter Priest in Age of Sigmar, that he's angry because he wants to be good, but he's actually rubbish in combat. Yeah. Whereas this guy does not look like he's rubbish in combat. He looks like he's going to kill you.
But I mean, the Slaughter Priest, that's the Slaughter Priest head that I shaved down and put onto. And I just built upon something that Games Workshop absolutely nailed. And they nailed it. They really did. That Slaughter Priest is just...
Yeah.
It's a stunning piece.
I think one of my favourite models ever, and I know we've spoken about this on the podcast before, but is the Chaos Lord from Silver Tower. Oh, I've forgotten
the Dark Oath Chieftain.
The Dark Oath Chieftain.
Oh, yes.
And it is entirely because of the subtlety in his face.
Yeah.
And you can read the expression in a number of different ways, but basically underlying it is just contempt for anything he's facing.
Right, exactly. But you personally drive that narrative, right?
Yeah, whether it's amusement or whatever,
exactly.
But the face is so beautifully subtle that the rest of the model just almost acts as a frame for that single piece.
Yeah, very much so.
So we are going to come back to some more of your work, Baz, later on. But for now, Ben, I'd like to hear a little bit about... No, I don't really want to hear about it, but we ought to hear about your Space Wolf. So go on then. What have you been doing?
It's actually been a painful month in some ways. So I finished that batch that I started a couple of months ago, which was the 10 Terminator, Wolfguard Terminators, the 10 Assault Intercessors done up as Blood Claws, 5 Swift Claws on bikes, and 6 Wolfguard in power armor. So a nice big batch, got them all done. And then I was like, right, I got a few bits. I want to round off the rest of my force. And I was in my head, I was like, I've finished my company. Now it's just tanks. I've just got a few more things to do. And so I thought what I'd do is I got the bits box out, and I bought I don't know why I bought a box of Blood Claws, but I had anyway. And I got all my bits out, and I said, well, so I'll bring up that 6-man Grey Hunter squad to 10. And then I thought, oh, I'll make the 10-man Blood Claw squad I've got to 15, so it matches the other one. And then I was like, well, that's an awful lot of Blood Claws. I need more Grey Hunters. Anyway, by the time I'd finished, right, I've now in the middle of assembling another 40 Grey Hunters and 5 Sky Claws. I've got I bought the Blood Claws box because I was wanting to do 5 Wolfguard with jump packs and shields and thunderhammers, right? So I could, because I just think that looks badass. Anyway, and in the end, I've got another squad of Long Fangs as well. So I've just gone mental because I've managed to convince myself, because this is one of the problems, and we often talk about how sometimes it feels a bit limiting to be told exactly what's in a company, because you can just go nuts otherwise. Well, they don't tell you what's in the Space Wolf company, and it's bad news because I know it's bigger, but how much bigger is a Space Wolf company? So now I've got...
it's been growing. It's been growing, man.
It's ludicrous.
It's just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger since the project started.
I've now got, it's actually going to be more than 200. But it's a 200 strong company, or will be when it's finished. But actually, the Wolf Guard are represented in both Power Armor and Terminator Armor, and in fact, 10 of them will also be on Thunderwolf. So it'll be it'll be about 230 models. Basically, I've gone mad. But I've just got so excited about them. I was like, I want a massive like Ragnar company. And
what's great though is this has been like Space Wolves have been your thing. Certainly the whole time I've known you. And that is more than long enough. So it's it is absolutely super that this is coming together. I'm so excited. And as well, like the paint quality on it, once that's all together, that is going to be a serious achievement. A really serious achievement, because it looks cracking, looks really nice. You know, there's individual models that you pick up and really want to pore over, but also there's going to be freaking loads of them, isn't there? So it's really great.
The thing is, as well, is like your passion for them shines through, and I don't just say that lightly, because with an army of that size, it's really easy to kind of bog yourself down, as you've rightly said. You're continuously increasing things, but the attention that you're spending on each model, especially character wise, it shines through. So and I'll be honest, I wholesalely approve of any Space Wolf action. So
yes,
it's good. It's really good.
I do really secretly. So I think the first ever 40k novel I read was Gaunt's Ghosts, because I loved Gaunt's Ghosts. And I was like, when Black Library was just getting started, but then some of the very early stuff I read was the Space Wolf, Space Wolf novels by Bill King. Just fantastic, just really cool. I love that first one when it talks about the selection process and how I think it talks about like. It seems like magic to them when they come down, and like their bolt pistols are like flipping ridiculous because it's like magic. And I just loved it, absolutely loved it. And when they're climbing up the rock face, I think they're doing as well at one point, and then they end up going down under the Fang and finding like this Zinch guy. Just bloody brilliant. I loved it. And I had a Space Wolf army. Oh goodness, I must have been about 13, 14. I remember because I just sprayed it Space Wolf Grey, and I had one of those bloody metal Land Raider Crusader when it had the metal sponsons.
Oh, the ones that didn't fit together. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
I wrote my I catalogued all my bits when I moved house last year because I was just struggling to remember what I had, and I was looking through it again the other day, and this is metal Crusader sponsons ×4, and then in the next column it's what condition they're in, and in the column after that it's what I plan to do with them. And for the Crusader bits, it's don't care, don't even think about it.
No, that's very wise. That's very wise. Yeah. But I mean, seriously, Space Wolves, personally speaking, I mean, I do a lot of the Horus Heresy. That's kind of, I'm really into the storylines and stuff like that, and the route. It's just, they're so incredibly kind of loyal, and I know there's all these kind of jokes about they're the Emperor's lapdog and stuff like that, but when you kind of cut through into their characters and you really get into the stories, Space Wolves they're just up there as one of the legions or chapters, whichever way you look at them, but they're top quality.
Which is the book which opens where it's like, I think they must be scouts. It's a heresy one, I'm sure, and they're coming down through a ship, like dropping down through this ship to attack something, and it's talking about their movements being really economical, and I can't remember which book that is, but it's anyway.
Right. It's definitely one of the 60 odd that's there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a standard kind of 2P's reference there. No specific information at all, but it's great. It's great.
I'm just going to guess it's either like, around the burning of Prospero. Let's go around there. It's definitely going to be close to that, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. And the Russ Primark book, really good as well. Really good read. Really enjoyed that.
I've enjoyed all the Primark books, to be honest. It's just such a great story. I could go on about it for days.
Yeah. Cool. So anything else, Mr. Hall, or is it all been...
No, so I love assembling models. I cannot stand cleaning them up. It's my least favourite part of the hobby. And the single thing that I cannot stand more than anything else is a Space Marine backpack. And it's because I've done so many of them in my life. But the little bits under the space thrusters at the top, like right underneath, tucked in.
Oh, under the exhaust type stuff. Yeah.
Oh. And you can't leave it because as soon as you spray it, you can see the mold line. And I'm sure plenty of people leave it and they sleep at night, but I can't. So I'm in there it takes me like half an hour to do a single backpack. So with 40 backpacks to do, frankly, I've been on the point of just...
Yeah, that's a form of torture, I'm sure. Yeah,
it's right up there with water torture. Anyway, so the fun side is that I've been quite excited because I built the Skullbjorg for my Primaris ones using the Blade Guard. I've taken a few of them and replicated them because I made a unit of 5 of the Shield Wall, they're called the Skullbjorg. For in Astartes, so I've got them before they were Primaris and after they're Primaris, and I'm only going to do that with the Wolf Guard because I can sort of follow them. They're the sort of people who would cross the Rubicon, aren't they? They're the ones who would.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the 13th Company. Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed doing that. But otherwise, I've been plasterboarding my new hobby shed, which is a brand new skill, and. I'm learning loads, and I ache from head to foot today. But I'll be doing the taping and joining this week, and then that'll be it. It'll be ready for paint, carpet, and I'll be moving in.
Very good, very good.
God, that's been a long time coming. Lockdown has made that very, very tough. Anyway, but that's it. That's been my hobby, which sounds like nothing, but equally, when you assemble models, big quantities of models. You've done loads of hobbies, but you've got nothing to show for it. No one wants to see a assembled squad of Space Wolves, do they? They don't really. Another Space Wolf squad from Ben. Oh, we're going to do a Space Wolf squad.
There's very kind of little glory in doing it, but they're essential, right? You can't have the good stuff without that stuff, so you need it.
But if anyone starts trying to talk me into a larger company than 200, I shall either have a stroke or someone's going to have to intervene, or I'm going to be there building another 50 of the bloody thing.
There is going to be a cause for an intervention, isn't there?
Yeah, I was reading a very good argument as to how a Space Wolf company could be the size of a chapter, because originally they were the size of a chapter, and why would they let them deteriorate over the years to the size of 100? And I was like, actually, that's a really good point. It's and they're all self-contained and they have their own. I was like, that is a very good. No.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. No.
There we are. Yeah, so that's me. How about you, Dan?
So it's been a month, obviously, because you remembered in good time that it was your good lady's birthday on our last planned recording. So it's been a month. So I finished up my Legion TX-225 Occupier assault tank for my stormtroopers.
How you remember these things?
I think that's right. So I finished the tank itself and got it onto its base. But to be honest, as I was sort of coming to the end of that, as we've discussed on previous podcasts, this year I'm doing lots of different things just to mix it up a bit. And my enjoyment was sort of ebbing off. And I think what I was doing, if I'm honest, is I was starting to rush and things weren't really quite working how I wanted them to. because I was trying to do them too quick, really. So I thought the best thing to do was to park that project for a bit, the Legion project, just put that to one side. So I've got some Wookiees to do, which I tried to do with contrast, and I don't seem to have quite got the hang of the best way to use the Wraithbone undercoat spray, because I've tried it a few times, and each time it's just not quite there. So Chris Goff seems to think he's got it on, so maybe he can undercoat all my models for me. But so I need to go back to them at some point. But the tank is done. I'm really pleased with it. Just some really simple weathering stuff on there, and the crew are obviously like really bright white armor, so they stand out nicely, which is cool. And while I was working on it, I watched Rogue One again. Which is, and this is the great thing, and this is what's going to happen when when 40K gets movies,
which isn't long now,
and hopefully maybe one day we can hope that something for AOS will go that way as well. But yeah, it's just great to be able to sit down and watch the tank you're painting blasting stuff away, which is quite cool. So that was good. And then I painted up a sorcerer for my Nurgle force. So I was hoping to share that picture, so you know what I was talking about, but I don't know what I've done. But it's tiny. It's like this big, the picture on the screen, so it's no good. But essentially, it's so if you're familiar with the Wormspat, which is the Underworld's warband, and the leader of the Underworld's warband is Fecula Flyblown or something like that, or Flyborn. Really like the model, not particularly bothered about using its rules. I just wanted a sorcerer, and the old Nurgle sorcerer, whilst it's a cool model, much like we were talking about before about scale creep, it really suffers because it's a lot smaller. So painted her. The only difference is that she's on in the Wormspat, she's on a 40mm base, but in the game the sorcerer is a 32mm base, so I've just put it onto a 32mm base, which is fine. It's not so much that I'm massively bothered about it being on the right base, but it is a way to show a bit of distinction, I suppose, that she's being used as a sorcerer and not as herself.
You can always use the other two as Blight Lords, can't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna use the others as Blight Kings, so because they're really nice, just nice alternatives. So she's done. That was quite quick. Again, bit of weathering stuff on there, but she's part of we're doing a Tale of Gamers, some of us, for Age of Sigmar, which I
wasn't invited, Baz. I was left out. I was left out of that one.
There is a reason for that.
Was it something to do with 40 Space Wolf backpacks or something?
No,
it's because whenever I'm involved, I'm the only one who does it, and everyone else just drops out. So
we've tried to do this a few times, and every time I get excited and then just get distracted. And I think the last attempt, I bought some models, and that was about as far as it went. So this time, I was determined. I wasn't going to say anything about it. I was just going to get on and see how I got. So doing all right. I've managed to paint at least something each month up to April now. So next month's going to be I had two. I went onto a website to order some paints, and somehow 2 Start Collecting Nurgle Maggotkin came with those paints.
Oh, they just jumped in.
Yeah, it just happens. It's amazing how Ben said to me the other day he thinks I should virus check my computer because this sort of thing keeps happening. I went on to pre-order the Be'lakor book, and the new Titanicus book and Death Zone for Blood Bowl appeared in the cart as well. I don't know how these things happen. So, it just is what it is, I suppose. But anyway, where are we? What was I even talking about then? Oh, yeah, the Start Collecting. So they're coming. So I'm going to do a unit of 4 of the Puscoil Blight Lords, which are the ones on the flies. Which would be cool. So I do them. And then finally, I've been working on, just to show that I really am all over the place at the moment, working on some Dark Eldar, some Drukhari. So that came off the back of watching Henry's, on the Cult of Paint, Henry's Drukhari color schemes. So I've always wanted to revisit Dark Eldar. They were the first army that I had as an actual army, because I joined the hobby just before 3rd edition. I know we went in to buy the starter set, and they said, look, we don't have any of the current starter set. don't bother buying it because the new one's coming out in like 2 months, and that new one was the 3rd edition one. So I started off with Dark Eldar, sprayed black with bits picked out in bolt gun metal. That was pretty much it. So I started being as into painting as I remained, where it's just as quick as I could. So I've always wanted to revisit them a bit. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Saw that color schemes thing. Was like, ooh. And it'd been a while since I'd got the airbrush out and really tried using it to do Zenith and stuff like that. So I thought, I'll try and follow that guide. So I'm quite pleased with them. I'm just doing 5 of them in the same scheme at the moment, but been picking up some different paints. So I've branched out in the past into other paint ranges and then come back. I've got the whole Citadel range because I always tended to paint very much by the box. So it made sense. But yeah, just branching out a bit, trying some different colors, different things.
I keep meaning to get myself some Liquitex white ink. That's definitely next on my list.
Is it?
Yeah, that's for passing through the airbrush, right?
Well, yeah, not only for that, but I quite often have for my the way I do OSL, I water down white paint and then drop it in.
Yeah.
And it never dries as bright as you want it to. It always so you need a couple of coats. Whereas with the Liquitex, all the videos I see people just drop it in and then there it is. I'm like, that's just
it's quite it's quite a nifty trick. Again, this comes from Andy, or a video from Andy, about where adding an ink into a color to really make it more intense.
Yeah.
Which it's not something I've had cause to do, but I've seen it, so I thought I'd talk about it. One thing I have got, again, Mr. Steele, if he was on commission, he'd have made a fortune this month because I've just been ridiculous. But he talked about Ultra Matte Lucky Varnish from MIG, and for the airbrush. This is incredible because you just put it in and off it goes. So all the other varnishes I've got, like the Vallejo ones, I have to thin them and choose how thin I want them, etc. Whereas this is just straight out of the bottle. Really good. So I was good. I only got the matte one because I'd run out of matte. So I'm sure I'll end up with the gloss one and probably about every different one they do. And they'll just line up on the thing here. And I even bought, Ben will be shocked, a P3 color called Blighted Gold from, I'm not a big, am I not a big fan of, it's not that I'm not a big fan of Privateer Press. I just didn't have a very good experience when I tried to play War Machine because it's very competitive and just trying to get into it wasn't great. So, but I did buy one of their paints.
Oh. I'm a big advocate for just getting the right colors. Brands, I mean, there are obviously with each and every brand, there's kind of like there's the colors that don't work. I mean, Games Workshop even got it. So I don't like a bad and black personally. No. I think it's really weak. So I go to maybe Vallejo for my blacks, and I'm just a big advocate. If there's the right color, then get it, and then see how you go from there. But then, I mean, I've still got loads of Games Workshop older paints. I've got the old cylindrical ones, still got them kicking around. But any color, whatever you can get.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you got an intact bottle of titillating pink?
Yeah.
Oh, such a good color.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So I've even got. Do you remember the old hexagonal metallic colors? The polished blue, glistening green.
Amethyst purple.
Yeah. I just make a point. I'm really sad. One of the boys, he laughs at me because once every maybe 3 or 4 months, I've got like my thumb it feels like it's going to fall off because obviously the old pots you used to open up with your thumb, and so I've got about maybe 200 that are sitting about, and I make sure every 3 to 4 months I just go in and I'll drop some water in. Obviously you mix it up, but another little tip: drop one more bit of water in and it creates a seal and it'll stop them drying up as often as they do.
Oh, there we go. I echo what you say in black and white there. I don't use
Abaddon Black's quite good for glazing because it's so transparent. It's quite good for glazing, particularly on like blues and reds. I find it's quite good to sort of glaze in, but if I want to black something out, just
the Vallejo model color though. I love it. It's really matte. Vallejo model color black, really matte.
Although the last one I got was as bad as a Bad and Black.
Wow, that's something. You must have got into contact with your Space Wolfness and gone funny.
I think it had just been on the shelf for a really long time, and because one of the things that we've been talking about and looking at over the last month, Dan and I, is a vortex shaker.
Yes,
because Luke from Luke's APS did a bit of a clickbait video about why I no longer use Army Painter paints, and I was like, that's a bit of a statement. But what it actually was that he didn't use them because they needed shaking so much. He ended up reducing his range down to like 20 paints, which was still Army Painter paints. He got this vortex shaker, and now he was using the whole range again. And I thought, well, you know what? It is really frustrating. You know, it would be useful for you as well, I should think. You know, you could drop your water in and... But we used to use them in like science class, you know, vortex shakers, but they're hell of a price. Like,
I don't know. I mean, some of them you can maybe pick up for, what was it? You can get them for maybe about 25 quid. It just depends where you can shop. There's some branded ones, of course, just like everything. But yeah, I mean, my mate, he's got one, so he brags all the time when I'm doing those bloody paints, doesn't he? So he's always at me saying, "Oh, if you only had this." So yeah.
I think the thing is, there's a lot of the ones that are like for nail lacquer.
Yep,
they're really cheap, but I can't work out because some of the seemingly more expensive ones have got a lower RPM than the cheaper ones, and the motor looks exactly the same. And you're like, well, what am I? You know, when you're buying an airbrush, you kind of know what it is because you can compare them a little bit. But I don't know what I'm looking at, so I'm like, oh. Maybe we should do some research, Dan, and do like a blog post or something on choosing a vortex shaker.
Just buy loads of them and then just like try see what's good for what. This one's good for beer. Okay, well, on that note, there's lots to talk about in the other segments, so I think it'd be good time to close off on the hobby desk and head across to the Galaxy of War. Welcome, listeners, to the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. And there's a little bit of 31st millennium as well to talk about today. So, right, I want to dive in, guys, with absolutely epic-looking Battle Sisters. I think that's a great place to start. So, I did try and find a picture. Let's see if it works. So, there we go. This is a sacrosanct. So, big shield, big axe, crazy sort of. Well, it's not headdress, is it? What's the thing behind her called? Is that on her backpack? I think it is.
It's on her backpack.
Yeah, it's almost like a trophy rack, isn't it? But
it's it's clearly some Victorian iron fencing is going on there. But yeah, so she is ace. So this is a combat Celestian, I think, isn't it? Is that right? What do you guys think?
I think she's absolutely superb. And one of the things I wanted to say straight off is that I genuinely did not see her coming, in the sense that I thought they were pretty much done with the sisters, and yet they just keep releasing new bits and bobs, and I'm starting to wonder when they're going to stop. But this is something that, as soon as I saw it, I thought, why? This has got such a clear place in the Sisters of Battle range. I mean, it's almost like there was a void there that needed filling, that the Crusaders used to fill. But why would they need to be like some bloke in that position when you can have halberd wielding sisters? Oh, it's going to be amazing. And if that's a squad, it's just going to be perfect. They're going to absolutely. I mean, imagine that the funeral of Saint What's His Face, with a couple of squads of these on either side, like just making its way down the middle of the battlefield. I don't care whether I win or lose that game, whether I'm playing it or on the receiving end or leading it. That would look fantastic, and that would be me happy. So,
yeah,
superb.
I think like they're really taking the sisters in a direction because, I mean, how many years were we crying out for sisters? So it would be, I think, hypocritical of anybody to go, no, I've had enough now. You know, I really think that we kind of we're getting what we asked for. I mean, you know, not every unit is to everybody's taste, and that is absolutely fine. But I do like this is kind of like this is more of a hint towards a defensive nature, you know, holding the fort, because, you know, that's what they do as much as any Marine, in some sectors more so. So I really love the kind of visuals they've gone down with, instantly, you know, recognizable with the silhouette of a sister. And I mean, look at the axe with the, like that fleur-de-lis on, you know, it's just, it's so nice. And is that a gun? I want to know.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. There's a bolt pistol in there, isn't there?
Yeah, so is it, you know, one of those ones that she's maybe, I would assume it's part of the shield. So
yeah,
it's,
I agree.
And just to clarify, Ben, the funeral of Saint What's-its-face is actually the triumph of Saint Catherine.
Yeah, that's
the model you're talking about.
That's the one,
yeah.
Everyone knows what I mean, so it's fun.
Yeah, I know. That's funny. I'm good. I definitely want to just call it the funeral of Saint What's-its-face now. Though,
wow, you know, that's what I'm going to call it from now on anyway.
Absolutely.
So.
Excellent. I just noticed that her helmet is actually got like a crest.
Oh, yes.
And I hadn't noticed that before. And I think that might be the only unit with like a proper crest on their helmet. Quite interested to see what's behind that, or whether it's just like a samurai sort of front crest, whether it's got like a trail behind it or something. But even then, if it doesn't have a trail, dead easy thing to sculpt on.
So we've also got the Dogmata that was shown as well, which she does not look happy.
She has got the look, hasn't she? She would terrify you into stationery.
I think it's lovely, but it's what I really like about the sisters is the possibility to alter them. You know, I mean, think of like that helmet that we've just seen. How easy would it be just to plonk that on top of her there? You know, just simple little change like that. Like I say, I think GW are knocking these sisters out of the park. They really are.
Yeah,
I think she comes with a helmet option, doesn't she?
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, there's some of the other pictures on the page were helmets.
Yeah.
She's got a lot more like I don't know, brutal looking armor, I think, as well, hasn't she? So that stuff across her shoulders, it's less sculpted, and it's just like, I'm gonna have you. So that's good. And what's interesting as well is we were previewed some like Sisters of Battle in kind of combat suit things, weren't we, a while ago? And they're not, you know, they're still not here. So there's so much still to come. Isn't there?
She's quite I mean, one of the things you don't hear much about is what happens to a Space Marine should they not walk the path. And it's probably quite as simple as like a fairly significant punishment and a bit of mind wiping, and then retraining, and then back on the line. But we all know what happens if you upset this character. The worst case scenario is you end up in a coffin, being permanently stuck in a state of pain, and then just let loose and just constantly. I think it also fires up their guilt centers, isn't it? So they're just in a constant state of guilt, anguish, pain, torment, and shoved in a coffin so that they're never going to die, unless they're hit by like a las cannon face on. And she's the one who makes that decision. So I think she's probably one of the most intimidating models in 40k, frankly.
She's like, oh my goodness! Right. So I'm going to.
I think my only thing I would have said with her is I'd quite like her to have a death mask of some description. So rather than a helmet, like maybe some form of death mask. So I think she would be really cool with an Age of Sigma, with a Stormcast face on, perhaps painted in like bone white and just trimmed back so it didn't have as much of the fanciness, but like a bone white sort of placid face mask, or a skull or something. I think she would, yeah.
Oh yeah, more skulls and a chain axe. That's what's needed there. That would be great.
Talking about hopeless heretics.
Malagus the Twisted.
Malagus the Twisted.
Yes.
So, Baz, tell us what you think, man, because you've already said, like, you know, heresy is maybe your biggest bag, as it were.
Yeah. You know, heresy has been quiet for a long time, as everybody knows. You know, it's been very dry, and this release. First of all, I mean, I love this model. I've seen many people that throughout the community, and they do their own Malakurs, and it's great. But to have an official model, that it really is like bang on. So, you know, I watch quite a few channels. The other day I was, you know, watching, I think it's Leaky Cheese. He does quite a lot of heresy-based stuff. And
good lad as well.
Yeah. And he really has got a passion for it. But I can't remember anyway. It was pointed out, if you look at Malakurs, Malakurs is the Twisted, Malakurs the Cripple, because he was, you know, shot down whilst acting as envoy, and that was him. You know, that's how he's come his ways. But he's actually using that banner as
to hold himself
to lean on.
Yeah.
You know, it's so nice. It's, you know, yeah, I'm going to wax lyrical, I guess, but the chthonic kind of runes on his knee, and stuff like that, it really does kind of get across the brutality, you know, of the Legion, and it's just so nice. You know, look at the little detailing. Yeah, they've absolutely nailed it. They really have.
So
is he resin?
Put something out here. I think he's plastic.
I think he's plastic. So the more I look at him, the more I think he's plastic.
Right. So this is the thing, right? Now be careful, because you're playing with a heresy lover's heart here. So
yeah.
There's been a few arguments. So if you look at the banner where he's holding it just above, if that was resin, then you're in trouble. You know, with those two small contact points to hold the rest of that banner up, I think you're in trouble.
I think also, if you look at the chains, perhaps, and also, you know, he's got that little tabard under, and then coming off it, there's a little chain link, little tiny chain link. I know these are all tiny things, but it's just the way those details look lead me to think plastic.
So it's deceptive on the basis that, as far as I'm aware, even when it's new models, Games Workshop plastic, they're actually showing you resin.
Oh yeah, of course.
They paint the resin copies. So I'm trying not to draw too many things from it. But the big thing, I was speaking to my good friend Welshie the other day there about it, is the base. So the telling thing is the base. The character series had a scenic base that came with their characters.
Yeah.
Malakurs is quite literally, you know, a named character, and he doesn't have a scenic base.
And the Sons of Horus being a key, I mean, they're all key chapters, obviously.
Yeah, of course, but they're the main protagonists.
That sort of model puts me in mind of the Ancient from the starter set for the new 40k. Remember the 8th edition, right? As a character within a starter set. So now I've just gone insane now and decided that it's a plastic dude from a new plastic starter set for heresy.
I'll take it all day long.
Yeah. Yes, how good would that be? I do not need that this year. I do not, but I want it. I want it so much.
You know, again though, you know, they've just. If you go back to that, I mean, look at his face. You know. That's so good. That is so good. But yes, I will take a plastic set all day long, and I don't care what's in it. Just keep that kind of heresy train moving. That would be lovely.
Yeah, definitely.
Who would you have in it opposite the Sons of Horus?
Well, so it's for me. It's like you know, you've got a definitive kind of like story timeline. It's kind of so it just really depends in the setting, because realistically, you know. It could, and there's a few legions that would be kind of like not necessarily my first picks, but he could literally be anywhere. Preferably,
Blood Angels.
You would go Blood Angels. Yeah, I mean, they didn't. I'm just trying to think how much they really met. But yeah, I mean, dare I say it, Ben? It could be Space Wolves.
they've already done Space Wars, and everyone would have a bit of a.
They would have a bit. Maybe Imperial Fists. Then it would be like I'm assuming it'd be something rather generic, and the characters, much like with 40k now, your characters are all exactly that. They're the character. They have all the adornments. And then if it's a starter set, I would assume you'd have some kind of basic guys. But again, if you want to go later Heresy, then Imperial Fists, White Scars, it could be a number of guys,
White Scars would be cool, wouldn't it? It would be really cool.
He doesn't look... I mean, I haven't read all of the stuff as in depth as you probably have, but he's not gone completely wibbly in that kind of... So I don't know. I get the impression that by Terra, a lot of them are a bit wibbly, a bit chaotic.
Well, so I'm not going to ruin it, but there's a few things that kind of happen along the way, and Malachus is, if I can divulge a little bit into, is like he's really switched on as to kind of like he's always got Horus's back no matter what, and he's fully aware of what demons are kind of up to. And he plays them at their own game. So, I think it's one of those ones where his loyalty is to Horus. It's not to Chaos.
Yeah,
and that's reflected, in the kind of, the armor that he's wearing. So it's
and the fact it's a Sons of Horus icon and not Chaos icon.
Yeah.
Although there's a little secret sort of 8-point star snuck in the middle, but
right, yeah, exactly.
But largely, it's the Eye of Horus, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's
one of the things I think is quite sad about, but going down to box sets of Heresy, the Fell-Handed and the
Ahriman.
I'm hopeless. They're gone.
Yeah.
You can't buy them separately at all.
Well, I mean, so that wasn't, as far as I'm aware, that wasn't Bjorn, was it? That wasn't Bjorn the Fell-Handed. So
it wasn't Bjorn the Fell-Handed, but it was something.
But no, it's again, it's one of the things. Being a Heresy player is like every game relies on new blood, right? So and taking away those starter sets, and then expecting somebody, with the greatest respect, Forge World are expensive for what they are. A 5-man Heresy, tactical squad or whatever, destroyers, you're talking upwards of 50 quid for 5 guys. So to expect a new guy to come in and maybe do that is a little bit unrealistic. So like I say, please, yes, I will take a plastic set all day long. I think
it would be great to see it, them add back in a bit more of the character as well, because I think I absolutely get the financial kind of driver behind this, but you've seen an awful lot of the bits for Heresy, the bits that make it individual, all the different bolt guns, all the different weapon options, the different armor types have dropped away and disappeared. And I totally get it. These molds don't last forever, and then you have to ask about the financial viability of recreating them, and then actually having the manpower to keep casting them when you're bringing out so much stuff, and your customer base is growing like it never has before. There's loads of. I get it. I just think it's a shame. I suppose, but for me, whether I'd have actually done it or not, I'm not sure. But I've got a Salamander Heresy army, all painted up, but I'd love to do a World Eater one, but I really, really, really want the sort of Mark II, but Mark III assault squads, which they don't do anymore, and that holds me up. So I'm not saying you must do Mark III, but I just think it's a shame that some of that individualness has disappeared.
Yeah, and I think sorry, Ben, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I just think, so personally, I would like to see all the Mark armor. So Mark II is the big one, right? Only Forge World did Mark II. And if they brought out a Mark II kind of Heresy set, then geez, I understand what you're saying. I know you can get the individual shoulder pads and some of the doors still for the vehicles. But they kind of took away a lot of stuff. But on the flip side, I would take a slightly diluted accessory set and swap it for a core set So it just means that more people get to, you know, to kind of have a look at Heresy, because the community as a whole, you know, I know you can, in every part of the community, you can get people that want to govern that community and, you know, do some drive whatever they want to, but it's a really, really good-willed community, and everyone does it for the same reason. We're in it for the story, you know? So, yeah.
I went to an event in Southampton a few years back, and it still is my favourite event I've been to, Heresy event.
Cool.
Just really good guys, good nature, just... Yeah, it helped that it was in a hotel and we stayed in the hotel and the hotel had a bar. These things all were heavily impacted. And sitting around a table playing Gorchos and the little board game, drinking pints is one of the finest things in life. Should be on Conan's list, really. Definitely. So
I was just going to say, Dan, before we move on from him, that I think that there's a real opportunity here for Games Workshop to move into 3D printing. So there's no reason at all why they couldn't sell the STLs of these and sell the rights to 3D printers in the same way that other companies do, so that you can, not for models, but for accessories. So for the Ferox pattern bolt gun, for example, and how I know that off the top of my head rather than the other names that are current, I don't know. But for example, the different patterns of bolt guns, and even little bits like pouches or, you know, people will buy those STLs, you know, and even if it's a couple of quid, I guarantee you, if they release the STLs for all of the upgrade kits that they've had for different legions and different armor classes, they will make an absolute fortune doing that. Because absolute fortune.
It would work for 40k as well, wouldn't it? So you could literally you could take away that hassle of all those extra bits, and then just I agree. I
wonder if there's a bit of a reticence there to introduce their entire customer base to the concept of 3D printing your miniatures at home. Those people will get there eventually, I think. Yeah. But in this, I don't know. It's a big question, but I would like it. Don't get me wrong. I agree.
But at the same time, I don't think that 3D printing is the answer to every solution, to every problem. So there's plenty of times that I've looked at 3D prints and thought, should I get the STL or should I buy the 3D print because I can't be asked to actually print the STL?
That's usually because you are waiting for me to print you stuff, and I go through phases of excitement on everything I do. And Ben has hit me with so many STLs, Baz. It is ridiculous. Like, he just went mad and just joined like 2 or 3 different Patreon things, and now I've got 100. It's not one. Why do I still get emails from loads of other places?
It's only one that I've asked you, and that's a Loot Room, a Loot Studio. Anyway,
no, but I don't believe you.
I think that there's literally an opportunity for them to print money with this, because I think accessories are a safe bet for them. People will always buy like perfectly made plastic models. They will always buy those. I will always buy those. But to then be able to make them your own by, you know, getting an STL and printing something, I don't think they'll lose money doing that. I think they'll make money doing that, and I think that's the key for them. But for us as customers, that would just be incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the ability to personalize on that level. Yeah, I think it's and I mean, let's be honest. You know, they've got no intentions. I don't think, anyway. Obviously, I'm guessing, but I don't think they've got any intentions of going down that rabbit hole again. Because there were some kits that they never ever, you know, they splash kind of released them, and everyone went kind of like, yes, we'll have them, and then it just disappeared.
Mm.
So yeah, I think stuff like that, and you know, there's a few things, but still, something like that would be cool.
I like his backpack. It's very.
It's cool.
Links in with the Chaos backpacks of 40k.
Yeah, it's like a dual purpose thing for me, that as well. It kind of gives you an indication as well that his backpack needs to be modified to help him as well, you know. It adds to that kind of air of that just his armor. If you look at his rebreather thing especially on the front. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, what injuries did he have to his lungs for that to be needed? But still, it's, it's wonderful. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely.
I've also just noticed how on the metalwork on the icon, whoever's painted it has done a bright highlight in the deep recesses, and it looks superb. And I'd never thought to do that when I was if I was going to paint that.
Mm.
So, Ben, I know you mentioned we were looking at a Space Marine face. What was that?
Oh, well, no, I just got really excited about the latest. I'm really excited about the upcoming videos, right? They're just looking flipping amazing. And I feel like you've been teased for the best part of a year. They now need to start releasing them. That's where I'm at. But the latest tease is, I think it's a chaplain's face. And I think the article is this the most photorealistic animation we've seen? Well, the answer is yes. If that's an animation, yes, it is the most photorealistic. It's superb. And I can't wait to see it. But at the moment, the stage I'm at is please release something, because I need the teasing has just gone on for too long now. We need to have an episode, because I want to have the same excitement as I do every week watching Falcon and Winter Soldier or whatever series is on the top, Mandalorian. So
Joshua is currently he goes through stages of what's his favorite. So for you, Baz, Josh is my little boy, so he'll be 5 in August. And he loves Octonauts. And there's a film version. They got like 3 like almost feature films, like hour-long episodes. And there's one about the Crown of Thorns starfish. And basically an army of them attempts to invade this coral and has to be defeated. And it's got this amazing music theme tune thing that gets stuck in your head, and they go like, we want to eat a tasty treat, tasty treat, tasty treat, we want to eat a tasty treat, yummy for our tummy. But every time I see an army of them, I'm like, that could be an animated army of orcs coming over the hill to smash stuff up. I'm not sure it would be appropriate to like show him it, but you know, no. it would be cool.
Yeah,
that was just an excuse for me to segue in Octonauts, because I'm actually secretly a massive fan. I love it with Captain Barnacles. So yeah, that's not going anywhere else really. So other than Octonauts and 40K animation, so some rules started sort of creeping out for changes for Mechanicus stuff. What is coming up book-wise from 40? Is this for a new? Are they getting a new codex, or is this part of the?
It's probably to do with that campaign, the thing of Rust or whatever. The book of Rust.
Yes. So I mean, I don't know. I know nobody's really been playing a lot of games, but they're definitely getting a step up just overall. But it's really, I don't need it, but I'm probably going to buy a unit of them and paint them, just because I really like. There's some good stuff. I don't know. Is it in White Dwarf this week? Might be in White Dwarf this month. The Metallica color scheme. So quite light, but would look great with a bit of chipping going on, bit of weathering as well. This thing got ridiculous. I mean, it looks pretty frightening anyway, doesn't it, to be fair? Arc rifle.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this means very little to me, but it looked good, and it's got some cool graphics saying old, new, with exclamation marks, so I had to read it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't do much gaming myself, if I'm being honest. Well, much like everybody right now. But I mean, you got Games Workshop have got so much to kind of keep up, and you've got to applaud them. They are, I know for some people it's not quick enough, and they want more, and there's always going to be that element. But they really are kind of looking at codexes and like army books and stuff like that, and give them credit where it's due. I mean, they really are starting to pump out, erratas and rules changes. And all right, it may be bad news for our wallets in the end of the day, but I really do appreciate their kind of, and especially coming from a Heresy standpoint where there's been very, very little. And then you see what 40K is kind of getting updated and changed. Yeah. GW are kind of doing.
It's worth reminding people. And I know some people will say there's no excuse, but the first codex I bought was a Space Wolf codex.
Yep.
And that lasted for like near on a decade.
Yeah.
It was a long time before that got replaced.
I like rules like this. Sorry, I thought you'd finished. Sorry, go on.
No, I have. Yeah, I like this change actually. Well, going from damage D6 to damage D3+3.
Yeah, I just think I like that consistency. It's a good way to mark a bit more powerful weapon.
More consistent damage output.
Yeah,
it's a much better reflection of kind of like a heavy weapon.
I mean, that is ridiculous.
Or as also changed to assault there, but is that
assault 2? I think though that's largely to do with where it's mounted, so it's on like a walkie thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
it would be on a vehicle. So
yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine a twin Cognis las cannon only doing 1 damage? I mean, it's ludicrous, isn't it? If it's hit, that's 2 beams and it only does 1 damage. It doesn't make any great sense. But I like that change a lot.
Yeah,
I agree. Thumbs up.
Okay. Anything else?
Nah, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
Okie dokie. Well then, in that case, from the grim darkness of the far future to the crazy magic of the mortal realms. So we will see you. Actually, grab some refreshments because I've not said that yet. This episode for everybody else. So make sure you grab some refreshments, and we will see you in the mortal realms.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Mortal Realms. And we've had a bit of a treat the last couple of weeks from the Mortal Realms. Stuff has been coming out that we didn't expected, and even though we expected, we're still blown away by. So, I mean, the first one is Darren Latham's absolutely magnificent Be'lakor. It's just, we've talked a lot.
I'm so excited for this guy, man. He is so cool.
We have talked about models being updated for AOS or from Primaris or if there is an example of like the absolute pinnacle of that art, it is this, isn't it? It is this. Be'lakor has just been given. It's been given the super soldier serum. This is like Captain America of Chaos, isn't it? Steve has just been given the injection and turned from micro Be'lakor into like.
I think first of all, just the size. It's everything you wanted Be'lakor to be when Be'lakor first came out. There's no denying that the first iteration of Be'lakor was stunning for its time. It was absolutely stunning, but it was also restricted by the materials.
Yeah.
So restriction has been taken away, and then. I'm a big fanboy of Mr. Latham. His work is just incredible. And you give somebody the license then and say, this is the brief, then inject as much steroids as you can, make him as massive as you can. But, it's just that extra bit, the model itself is incredible. And then you look at the base, and then the base has got 2 options because obviously Be'lakor is one of these creatures that is in both game systems. And it's just, geez. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't envy anybody that's going to clean up all of those chains with mold lines. So the best of luck to those people. But the model it's just breathtaking. It is absolutely phenomenal.
I love that they've done it so that you can put either the Chaos Warrior, as you say, Chaos Warrior or the Space Marine, or you can leave it off and then have it for both systems. I
love how sinister he is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I took away from the original Be'lakor is he's not like it's not like some massive, great big rage engine. He just kind of was brooding and sinister, and felt very much like Melkor or whatever you want to, Morgoth. You know, he just he's like a black hole of light. This guy feels like everything is just sort of, all goodness is disappearing from the world around him. It's just brilliant.
It's so exciting. Sorry, I could talk for ages about Be'lakor because I'm so excited on so many levels. So the model is incredible. The base, like we said, really cool. It's cool how it's almost like the land itself is rebelling against him and like coming up like a claw around him, and it frames him really nicely, gives him even more height. But also from a background perspective, so another fantastic link back to the old world, and what, you know, an adversary, a big bad for Archaon as well, which is so exciting. So, you know, you got the good versus good thing, and this has always been a thing with Chaos as well as Orcs as well, is that kind of internal infighting. And this is just brilliant because this isn't one power, you know, Khorne having a bit of a beef with Slaanesh. This is the whole principle, Chaos Undivided versus another form of Chaos Undivided. And you can almost hear the Chaos Gods laughing away to themselves as these guys are duking it out. It's just superb. And I want him. I need him. Because I've just started doing this Nurgle army. So I've got my Khorne army. I've got quite a lot. I think I'm up to about 7,000 points, I think, all painted up, ready to go for Age of Sigmar.
Small skirmish.
Just 7. Yeah.
I mean, you do. So one of the lovely things doing the Chaos Army in Age of Sigmar is that because once they change to round bases, obviously it reflects in 40k as well. So my Khorne armies cheat a little bit because they borrow demons from each one, but the Khorne army is all done on like a snow basing scheme with the bright red blood because it showed up and I like it. With the Nurgle, I wanted to do something different and I went with lots of tufts and life, because I love the idea of Nurgle sort of walking through and all this life like blooming up around him but then disappearing into decay. Almost that cycle of life really fast. I said, well, this guy, I want to do him, and I want to have basically imagine from one side of the base is the Nurgle scheme, the other side is the Khorne, and then have them sort of crossing over to pull the army together visually so that they can both be used alongside. And then I'm like, oh yeah, well I could do that, and that's undivided. Then I could have some undivided knights, and then I could have this Lord on Karadrock thing. I'm so excited. He's cool, man.
The base thing you were just saying there, personally, I mean, so we were talking obviously just earlier there about, you know, his kind of being just this epitome of darkness. So you could maybe, and this is just, but you could maybe have like you say, influences from both of your armies from each side, but you could make it that the darkness from him is actually overtaking those.
Yeah, that's
so there would be
idea.
A blackness emanating from him. You look at this model and, you know, it's just, I mean, I look at those wings and I just think to myself, never in our days have we had something, you know, like I say, I know how spoiled we're being right now. There's just models like this are just, it's just incredible. It really, really is. The more you look at it, I mean, you look at the base victim, shall we say. There's even an argument that they're a sacrifice that has summoned Be'lakor, you know? You could drive it. It's such a lovely update. You know, you can tell that Darren Latham has just looked at that Be'lakor sculpt and just went, it's lovely, but let's just add some more. And in a really sympathetic way.
I really think he's the master of doing this.
Absolutely.
There's 3 models that I think nail that. Ulrich the Slayer, Ragnar Blackmane, and this guy are such perfect reimaginings of their original models. That I think it's just superb. I really do. One of the things you could do, Dan, coming from the base, is do a little bit of anti-Zenithal airbrushing, just a real subtle, and have red on one side where his armor is, coming up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Not much, just look at the tiniest suggestion, and green coming from the other. So it was almost reflecting off of him.
So the real question, though, is do I future-proof him by having a blue and a pinky colour as well for when I inevitably do Tzeentch and...
I think if you did that, you'd end up with... you'd lose the narrative, I think, if you had 4. I think with 2, it would work. But I think if you were going to do it for 4, I would leave him quite neutral. I'd leave him as a blackness, like a darkness in the middle.
Who did the resculpt of Abaddon?
I don't know, actually. That's superb as well.
Because that's also really nice, isn't it?
It wasn't. Was it Seb Herbert? No, it wasn't Seb. It was. Oh, why? And I should know this because that's me just being ignorant of the creator. But yeah, it's. Oh no, that's going to bug me, Dan.
Sorry,
it's fine. But no, like you say, they're masters of their craft. They really are. I really do like. I'm struggling to find anything I don't like on this model. Even the fact, fine well, those chains are going to be things that are optional. They're on there right now because it's display, but you can just take them away. But you've still got the rings left in the wings. You've still got options. And if I remember rightly, there's another chain, but it's also got Primaris heads or helmets attached to it as well. Even the accessories, they've went the extra mile. Yeah, I love this model. I'd love to say I'd paint it, but it's massive. So it seems like it's, yeah.
I even toyed with the idea of buying this just because I like it so much and I wanted to paint it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's loads of really nice challenges in there, like the use of browns in a black model. I always find really interesting, and it's something I'm exploring more and more. But if you look at his wings, for example, there's loads of brown in there, but overall the image is black or comes across as black. And I really fancied that challenge. And the same with the sword. The sword is clearly a different color and your eye keeps getting drawn to it, but it's dark. And creating a focal point on a model which is dark without it being ridiculous is, I think it's an art form in its own. And whoever's painted this has managed to do it not only with a sword but with his face. And I think it's because of the tongue, but also perhaps that the horns are highlighted in a way that draws your attention to his face. But it's very good, isn't it? It's really, really good.
Yeah.
But that's not it. We've got this dude. Kroak.
So we're talking about reimaginings. How good is this?
It's absolutely mind-blowing is what this is. So this is Kroak, the reimagining of Kroak, which came from nowhere. Like, no one saw this coming. And it is, I'm guessing this is going to be the next book.
Well, so Seraphon are in the Be'lakor book.
Right. So so basically the Be'lakor book has just got two.
Well, there's no so it's not confirmed that Kroak is in it. Not that I've seen anyway. And that this model is coming with that book, but they definitely have some updated stuff in the book. In fact, there is an article about it, so maybe there is, but whether he's coming out with it or not, I don't know. But I love that they're revisiting the Seraphon.
He has been made to look like he's floating, but actually, one of the things have found with a couple of the models that they've done recently is the floating models are real delicate. Like this guy looks like he's floating, but there's a real structure to it that he's robust. He's robust. Yeah. Apart from that little skink spear, which I would almost certainly break off. And then never be able to pin because it's tiny.
The feathers, but I think that's credit to their, like, shall we say, engineering of models now. They really do think about the game inside, and that's something it's. I mean, I'm just looking at the base. You can see the snakes coming out from underneath him. It's just it is so good. And I know you can take the headdress off, right?
Can you?
So yeah, so it's just Croak's face itself, and they've come away from this. I think it was skeletal before Croak, right?
Yeah,
it was all skeletal, but now it's not. It's like a proper old frog, you know. it's so nice, and you would imagine, because he's one of the gatekeepers, the main ones against Chaos. So to have him and Be'lakor coming out roughly the same time, it kind of makes sense, I guess. But
I think it's going to be interesting to see what role he takes, because there is mention in an article somewhere that Be'lakor makes a play against Archaon with an unforeseen, like with support from an unforeseen sector.
I'd love it if Croak had been playing the manipulator. Yeah,
so my cast, we were chatting about it in one of the hobby groups, and I was like, it's going to be I reckon it's the Seraphon. I reckon he's going to try and play them off against each other. I could be wildly wrong, of course, but yeah, I can see it. I love these guys, and it's so cool to see them coming into. There's when they initially appeared in Age of Sigmar, and they were all summoned. They were like summoned memories of the Slann and stuff. And there's a great one where Skarbrand is trying to attack the Everglade or something, and it's not Croak, it's just a Slann, but he's just summoning like more and more stuff, and Skarbrand's just getting more and more angry, and it's all going down. It's just mental. But yeah, brilliant model. Look at that. Yeah. It's so good.
I know, again, I know we're used to it, but that paint job is just incredible.
Yeah,
you know? It is really unbelievable. The amount of detail. And
what's frightening is I don't think that the heavy metal team uses airbrushes.
Yeah.
So, like, even those, like that subtle blend on the texture going all the way around the circular bit. It's not something you can just sort of wet blend, or you've got to blend across the whole thing and then go back, and I just think that's just amazing.
It is good.
It's amazing. I'm loving turquoise at the moment. I've started to use turquoise on like gems and stuff for my Space Wolves, and I'm really loving it. But I'm really like this. The point color on this is turquoise, isn't it? And it just is such a lovely color.
Yeah. I mean, when you see just how many colours are actually on that is absolutely unbelievable. I
love the plants as well. Like the little plants are really nice, aren't they?
Yeah, they're often looking a little bit weird.
The underside of this palanquin is the same as the original model, but better. So I really like that. That is great. Oh, yeah. And as you say, Ben, out of nowhere, out of nowhere.
I love it when they surprise us like this.
Yeah.
Because I was just flicking through my phone and I was like, oh, what is that?
So, I don't have pictures of them, but a couple things that I thought were worth discussing. So Garda's Steel Soul, who we discussed because he came in the recent preview. His war scroll, oh my days, is ace. He's so cool, but he really epitomizes the Hallowed Knights and what he's like. So he has this ability whereby he can shrug off wounds, and he can help other Hallowed Knights shrug off wounds, because they're all like, only the faithful, we aren't going to die. Ain't got time for that. And then, and he can also, if you kill him on a certain dice roll, he just doesn't care and tries to beat you up anyway. So yeah, I love that. That's really good. So that's coming out soon. And also the Torturer from the Nighthaunt Torturer guy that I'm doing a Ben now, and I've completely forgotten what he's called. But oh well, I'll get over that. Let's have a look. I did have it saved. So quick, we need some filler.
Well, there's a couple of other things, isn't there? This this last month have come out. So we've got the
Crawlgast Cruciator. Sorry, Ben, I cut in across your filler because I found the name. So he's pretty cool as well. Yeah, there is some other things. So I have got a couple of other pictures.
All right, yeah. Yes, father and daughter.
Yeah.
More witch hunting brilliance.
Biggest crossbow ever.
They need a book, don't they? I hope there is a book for those two.
What, like a novel?
Yeah, like a novel, totally.
Yeah, I expect so. That is cool, isn't it? I like that. I like that brazier going on.
I like the dueling pistol.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really cool. That kind of locked out elbow. He looks like the kind of calm witch hunter who's just sort of walked in and quietly going about his business, killing vampires.
See, I'm a big I'm an old kind of school kind of guy, and this instantly makes me think of More Time.
It does.
Instantaneously. It is lovely. It's but perfect kind of witch hunter type vibe about it. A vampire hunter. Yeah, it's just. I don't really have too many more superlatives for Games Workshop right now. They really are. I don't remember a time when we've had so many good models come out in succession.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely blowing everything out of the park.
She's great, isn't she?
Yeah.
You can I think there's a version of her with a hat as well.
Is there? Brilliant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think I quite like them both with hats.
Yes.
Inquisitors and witch hunters need hats.
They do, don't they? Sorry, I'm just sort of looking there.
It's got it strikes me, if you were to do them in very dark colours, it's got a very Van Helsing type feel.
Yeah.
You instantly set in. I don't know if like a kind of monochrome paint job on them would be something, with little accents of colour, but they're just...
They would look nice in monochrome with a nice sort of light source, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
There's a lot of... Look at those eyes.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely baffled and never will be able to be convinced that it's done by hand when people do like the irises and then the pupil and then put a white dot in the pupil. That's just physically impossible.
Dark magic. Magic.
Yes. That's exactly
Gareth Nicholas does it all the time. It's like, well, here's a tiny little elf eye, and not only has it got the white, then it's got the iris, then it's got the pupil, then it's got a white dot, and you're like,
yep.
Gareth,
then it's got the reflection,
yeah. Come on, it's ridiculous.
And it, he even paints the reflected tears of your sorrow that you can't do it in the eyes of the models. It's crazy.
There's also the vampire lass, isn't there?
Yes, of course, with the little mask.
Yep. Yeah.
The vampires. Oh, the vampires. They're just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So this one is it is the one with the like ball mask on a stick, like the and she's got the long flowing cloaks. And she just looks so sinister, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I really love this one. She might be my favourite vampire out of the lot. I think she's the one, or looks the one, like the one who's in the background causing all the strife and getting all the angry vampires to go off and do her bidding. Yeah, I think she's great.
She's definitely suffered from the lockdown, not being able to have a haircut, though.
I think you're going to see that model in many kind of different forms. It's with head swaps, arm swaps, you name it. I think people are going to go to town on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so kind of non-Games Workshop in its appearance.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily follow the same kind of ideas and tropes that you would associate with Games Workshop. It's just
an excellent vampire. You could put this in almost any vampire game and it would work perfectly.
And her disgustingly sharp hips.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so good. Yeah. Yeah, it's very good.
They're all great, the vampires that have been coming out, aren't they? Really good.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to see their book when we get them. They're really good. Okay. So, I mean, there's always loads to talk about in all the sections, but I think now would be a great time to go on and quiz you a bit on some rather nice stuff that you've been doing. Hail, glorious community. We move now to quizzing Baz about his awesomeness, basically. That's probably the best way to put it. So for those that are not aware, we sort of come across Baz on Instagram because of his incredible green stuff work. He's also a dab hand with a brush as well, which is nice. I've seen some lovely stuff. So I'm going to start by putting up the model, and this may come as a surprise that I think looking through is probably my favorite, mainly because I'd love to see him reimagined, and like this would be nice.
Dramatic pause. Oh yeah.
So what we're looking at here, for those of you that can't see it, either because we haven't edited it or because you're listening to it as a podcast, is Baz's reimagining of Azrael. And I just think it looks absolutely cracking. I really do. I think the pose is ace. Really good details. So why did you do this guy, man? Was this somebody requested, or was this...
Martin Waller approached me. It was something that we discussed. We were looking at a few pieces just on the off chance that I could kind of make something for him. Dare I say, I mean, I was nervous when he approached me. You know, he's an incredibly talented man. He really does know his way around miniatures. And we settled on the idea of Azrael. And from that point on, you know, it's that kind of updating, shall we say? It's not necessarily the word I want to use, but again, just kind of bringing him into kind of like the Primaris universe, if I want to say that. And but yeah, it was something that I really kind of wanted to challenge myself with, because I do consider myself still very much learning kind of like sculpting processes. The things that I'd love to communicate with people is, you know, the robe specifically on this guy. It maybe took me 2 attempts to even get the center section correct to my liking, because, you know, you can do work and then you go back, you know, the next day and you think, no, that doesn't look right. And I'll take it away, I'll scrape it away, and I'll go at it again.
And with the robes on this one, there's quite an obvious color difference, and sometimes that's because you've mixed the green stuff more yellow than blue. But have you done something different? Have you added in Milliput or?
Yeah. So that's exactly it. I find, personally speaking, I really like working with the Milliput and green stuff mix. I roughly mix like 50-50 of each. So, you know, obviously it's 2-part epoxy for both of them. You'll mix them up in equal size balls and then mix those two together. Now, it doesn't necessarily prolong the time you get to work with it, but I personally just like the feel of it when I'm doing robes. I kind of feel like I've got more control with the Milliput mix, and I find myself using it more now than maybe I would with green stuff pure. I use the green stuff a lot for, as you can see on Azrael, is detailing. You know, shoulder kind of details, and just the kind of odd angel wings and stuff like that around. That's mainly what I use the pure green stuff for these days.
Yeah. Because Milliput make a lot of different putties, don't they? So do you have one that you're...
Milliput standard.
Just the standard
just
one,
standard stuff, yeah. Just purely because, if I'm being honest with you, that's what I had to hand when I thought it might work. So I just I mixed it in, and it's I just I don't know how to say it other than it just felt right at the time, and the bonus you have with that, if anybody's ever worked with it before, it's great for the likes of standards and tabards and capes, because you don't have to focus on getting it absolutely smooth if you're not as confident, initially. You can go back afterwards and you can sand it down, you can file it, and you can, refine your work if you're not comfortable.
Mm. And that's the milliput that does that to it, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because green stuff has like a fibrous texture to it. If you try and sand it and file it, you can do it a little bit. I wouldn't recommend it personally, but if you do a little bit of wet filing, you can get a small amount of sandpaper, a little bit of water, and a light touch, you can do it a little. But I really wouldn't recommend sanding green stuff or filing.
And is that the Watcher there? Is that obviously not the you can see which bits are the grey, but the rest of him, is that a pure sort of sculpt from the ground up?
Yeah. So he was like, I haven't done many like just pure sculptures in that sense. That's something that maybe will come with confidence, I guess. But with the smaller guys, he was just built out of a small wireframe. It was actually the first part I tackled on Azrael was the Watcher, because I knew it then that if I could get the Watcher right, it meant that I was kind of green lighted to go from there. If I did it the other way around, I guess it probably would have felt even more intimidating towards the end.
Yeah.
So it was something that I consciously did first. And again, Mark and I, we just had a few kind of chats about him, and he was like incredibly good. There were a few bits that maybe weren't as sharp, and he was, he kind of forced me to push myself in areas where sometimes as hobbyists, I think we all get that kind of sensation, all that feeling. It's like, I think that will do for this job.
Mm.
And with this one, it was kind of like, no, I can't say that will do. It was more a case of, let's just push this right through. So,
yeah. Love it.
And you sorted out the combi weapon, so it makes some sense.
Yeah.
Rather than the magazine traversing the bullet somewhere from like the butt of the gun through.
Well, yes.
A couple of right angles.
Yeah. Well, that was something when we do kind of like, when I speak to somebody about maybe updating a model or changing things to kind of like bring it forwards into this universe, is trying to be sympathetic to the old sculpt, but not being afraid to change things that don't necessarily make sense. Yeah. Even in the 40k universe, that really doesn't make sense anyway. But with the game, regards, like you say, a bolter shouldn't have to come through a curved angle to get and fed into the, the rifle itself. So, yeah, that was something that we changed.
It's like the old Boxnort assault cannon, which just makes no sense at all. But it looked great. So did this guy? So now we're on to Asmodai, I assume.
Asmodai, yeah.
Based off, is that the boxer? That's
Mark Gibbons?
Yeah, Mark Gibbons. Yeah. So. Yes. Azrael is also Mark Gibbons. I'm a genuine fanboy of Mark Gibbons. He was like, he was my kind of like artistic kind of, just, he just does some amazing work, really amazing work. And when I'm asked to kind of work on a model and replicate or get close to any sort of Mark Gibbons work, Games Workshop have done them themselves, of course, with Mephiston recently. It was based off another Mark Gibbons artwork. And his stuff is hugely inspirational, and it really is good to try and test yourself, and try and get close to what the artwork is.
And was this sculpted after Azrael? Or before?
It was, yeah. So I think he's one of my kind of later sculpts, stuff that I'd like to think I'm refining. So before with Azrael, I think, I used kind of stock hands and stuff. It made sense to use them, but with Asmodai, I had to push myself to kind of learn to sculpt fingers a bit better. And this was done for a kind chap, Mamikon, and he. We discussed quite a lot of things, and it was pushing myself on likes of the hands, and just trying to get those kind of, geometric shapes are very difficult when sculpting. Those kind of straight lines, anything, a circle, they'll cause you problems. Skulls, it sounds really silly to say, but you've got leeway with a skull. They all come in different shapes and sizes, but a circle is a circle, a square is a square, and there's just that lack of kind of leeway. So yeah, this is definitely one of my kind of. I felt like I've learned a lot on the robes with this one around.
I must. So that sword, is there something in there underneath the green stuff?
There is, yeah. That's another sword.
Ah, okay.
So I was looking for, essentially what I was looking for is something like typically Dark Angel. It needed to be that right shape. And that was an old Deathwing plastic sword. The problem is this is a Primaris model. So where you see the power node roughly on that sword is where his hand was.
Oh, okay.
So what I had to do is, I've had to shave his hand off and then use that same plastic piece that was his hand and extend the blade. Yeah. So that's really why I kind of did it over the top of the blade. Nowadays, if I could maybe do it over plasticard, my only issue is it just doesn't have the rigidity possibly that would be needed. And I like to make sure that the models are sturdy, because irrespective of whether it's a display piece or not, I would hate to think that something's going to pop off.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And my only kind of like the biggest thing for me is rivets. Whenever I kind of do a model for somebody, there's no way for me to secure those rivets on other than green stuff to green stuff. I could try and put a dot of glue, but if you've ever had glue and green stuff contact each other, it hardens.
Yeah.
It really does. It just kind of like, it seems to be an activator for the super glue, and the super glue just kind of goes off. So all the rivets, they're there. That's why when I send things away, I wrap them in bubble wrap like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just to keep it all safe and sound.
But you wouldn't want to put all that work in and have stuff pop off, would you?
Yeah, well, that's it, exactly. And I've done it a few times. Let me add that is something that I do even to this day. I'll damage stuff, or I'll get carried away, as I'm sure you'll know, Ben, is you'll maybe do a bit too much green stuff in, and then you go, oh, yes, I've got that perfect. And then you realise you've been holding the previous detail that you were happy with your finger.
I hate that so much. Yeah.
I did that today.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no, I did that today. Today on a crown, but there you go. What can you do?
Yeah.
There you go, Ben.
Ulrich the Slayer, mate. This was absolutely banging.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.
I am genuinely a Space Wolf fanboy. Everything about the Space Wolves. So when I was approached to do this one, it came with pressure. I think it was obviously self-imposed pressure, but I wanted to get it right.
How did you give it away? That's what I couldn't. If I'd done this as a commission, I'd be like, "No, I'm keeping it, mate."
Yeah. So do you know, I've kind of got used to it maybe over the past year.
Yeah.
I said to you guys earlier, it's like all of this stuff has kind of taken me by surprise, in the sense that I never really considered myself to be a sculptor. I liked to change things, but it kind of snowballed early on. I mean, I did a Primaris Pedro Cantor for Pardo over S10 Battle Reports, and it really took me by surprise, like all the interest and stuff like that in it. And to kind of be to a point now where people are approaching me to do characters that they love. Ulrich, like I say, it's a character I've always loved, Ulrich the Slayer. And I think, when you're approached by somebody to do their kind of loved project, then it deserves the kind of attention. And yeah, sometimes I'm guilty of just maybe doing a little bit of too much, I care a little bit too much, in the sense that I don't want to give it away at the end, but I consider that I've done my job right, if you get what I mean. And if I want to keep it, I've done it right.
Yeah.
Because if I just went, that's that finished, then I kind of feel like then I've not really give it the kind of the stuff it's due. And as you said earlier, Ben, Darren Latham, when he did that kind of Ulrich the Slayer at ease, so I've used a lot of his bits, and I was contacted by him, and I was blown away because, like I say, I'm a fanboy. I love his stuff, everything he did and has done, and it was just really nice to hear that he liked it. Yeah, so it was really good.
Oh, that's awesome. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
As well, so it's nice. It's nice that he got in contact with you and said that.
Yeah, very much so.
A goblin.
Yeah, a goblin
with a little baby squig.
Yeah. I was I rarely get to do kind of AOS stuff. I mean, I do like doing AOS stuff. The sculpts for AOS are they're just another level. But this, I believe, was a Skaven priest. Is that right? Yeah. So, and it was really just a question of taking away everything Skaven and just kind of adding all those little goblin-y bits on. And the baby squig thing, that was... you can't really see it. I wasn't very kind of good, but essentially he's got one leg that's longer than the other. Because I wanted to have that narrative that it was actually a little deformed one, but it's now become his body. And he's kind of, it's one of those things. So, I'm pretty sure along the lines, there's something I did to make it like there was something wrong with his other foot. I think it was maybe missing its claws. It was something like that. Yeah, but it's just a fun little thing. When do you get to do like mushrooms growing out of a staff for no reason? They got no right to go. Just do it anyway.
So when you come to I mean, this is a great. The next one up is the Chaos Lord. When you come to a project, obviously a lot of the time, by the sounds of it, is someone's coming to give you a commission.
Yeah.
I'm guessing some of the times it's just because you fancy doing it. This one was for a friend, I think, wasn't it? The Chaos Lord.
Well, this is Sorry. Sebastian has become a friend because of this.
Oh right, I see. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd actually done Huron Blackheart for him.
Yeah.
I'd done that for him, and he approached me about a Khorne Lord, and he gave me the license to go crazy. Yeah.
I love it. And this is the face on it. We've talked already about faces. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
Thank you.
Well, you're not going to say, it's brilliant, mate. It is, Baz. It's brilliant.
Well, thank you. It's the faces. Like I say, I've only done like a few at the moment, and for kind of like for someone like I think I said before, it's like you have a little bit of leeway with something that has such a strong expression. You have, I guess, a little bit more leeway in the sense of you can make a few mistakes, or your all of your details can be sharper than they should be. On a face, you don't necessarily get all these sharp angles, but with a Khorne Lord that's obviously just lost his mind with all the nails, the butcher's nails, and let alone with the influence of Khorne, you can just go to town. I took a lot of influences from the model that I sculpted over the top, which was the Slaughter Priest, as you rightly said, Dan, before. With that horrible split lip. I mean, I've done a few on around his mouth, and you just think, just how painful would that be? He's got sharp teeth, I know, but I mean, he's just got cracks all through the upper lip, and I really did enjoy doing him. And Sebastian, he's such a really cool guy, Sebastian. So it was a pleasure to do it for him, and he knocked the paint job out of the park. He really did. So,
how did you do the teeth? How do you go about those kind of really fine details?
Oh, right. So the teeth. So obviously with teeth, the issue maybe people try to do is they try to get the thinness of the tooth from front to back. The depth of the tooth, they try to get that straight away, whereas I don't. So what I'll do is I'll build a wall within the mouth. So if you imagine, imagine a tongue. You build it just like a tongue. You'll stop it just short of the lip. So if we talk about down the bottom, it'll probably be an easier example, but it's repeated up the top. And all you do then is you create a flat surface and build the front wall of the teeth. And then I'll go in and I'll score the teeth shape, individually mapping out my teeth. And then for him, I needed them to be sharp. So I sharpened the front angle of each tooth. So it looks sharp from the front. I still had the backfill in the back to keep the tooth strong so it doesn't flop about or fall off, which is annoying.
Yeah.
And then once I was content with that, then I would go back in and with my tool in behind what would now his fresh teeth, I would pull it away and I would just pull it off of the surface. So if you can imagine, then I'm almost carving the green stuff away from the back of the teeth.
After it's dry or before it's set?
Before it's dry. So you've had quite a bit of experience yourself, Ben, with it. There's that kind of golden window where green stuff is at its best, and I kind of think that's roughly about 20 minutes after it's mixed.
Yeah.
But I've now become accustomed to working with it straight away. So I will kind of do that straight away. And then after that 20-minute mark, it's then got enough rigidity for it to hold where it is whilst you're carving away. And then essentially it's got enough, like I say, rigidity to keep those teeth in place as you're pulling stuff away. But it's not hard enough to drag the teeth with it, if you understand. So when you're pulling that away from the teeth themselves, it doesn't pull the teeth away with it necessarily. It's something that you can kind of get used to different kind of techniques. You can also score behind the teeth themselves initially, and then, you don't have that issue, but you've got to have something to use as a kind of a gap fill or a stopper to stop you from pushing the teeth away from the gum line, so to speak. It sounds like a faff. I'm really terrible at describing. That's why the pandemic is as everyone is suffering from it, and obviously my gripe here is hardly anything big. But I would love to show people in person because in a technological sense, I'm very, very limited. So I'd love to say that I could record videos for people and do things like that, but I would love to kind of sit down with people and just show a few things. I think would just make sculpting or getting into sculpting a bit easier.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at some of your painted stuff as well, because conscious that you did some lovely green stuff, but you're not a rubbish painter either, are you, Baz? To be fair.
Oh, thank you. I do like painting. I really do. Sculpting has become something of a passion for me, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think it's safe to say that I'm more known for the sculpting side of things, which is absolutely fine. But I do like to dust off the old paintbrushes once in a while and slap a bit of paint on. I think sometimes there's nothing better, really. There isn't. You can just lose yourself in the world and kind of just get going, get busy with it.
So we're looking at, is this a Firehawk? What is this?
A Firehawk, yes.
Firehawk,
yes. Yeah, I mentioned my mate before, Welshie. He's kind of like, I call him my hobby brother. It's, he's the guy that kind of keeps me straight in the sense of I'll maybe show him some pictures of stuff that I'm working on. He's someone that I kind of like, as I've said to you guys before, I've got a few projects on. I'd love to share them, but at the minute I'm just going to keep them a little bit secret. But he'll keep me right in the sense of, the sculpt. He'll maybe tell me he did a little thing at the start of the pandemic where it was like everyone was feeling a bit low, so let's do a Badab Wars model, and we just kind of picked a model, and I got Firehawks, which I'm very happy about, and just kind of went about doing a few flames and some bits. But yeah, it was a lovely change up. It was something I enjoyed doing.
I love the face on this guy, and the saw, the chainsaw, where you've got the stripes, the chevron bits.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you've got the blood splatter and everything. It just looks spot on. I really like it.
Thank you. It's
really good.
The faces. So I'm a really basic guy when it comes to paints, if I'm being honest, in the sense of the way I approach it. So my faces, they get a base coat of, now I'm trying to think. I use an old foundation paint at the minute. It's Talan Flesh, I want to say it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So that and an Agrax Earthshade wash. And then all I do is I add white into that and highlight it up. And then just recess wash in some reds around the eyes, nose, and mouth. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to kind of push myself. I think we're all as hobbyists, we want to do things and kind of push ourselves. Dan, with you and your vehicles and stuff like that, with your battle damage, and Ben with your sculpting. I think everyone's kind of got that drive, right, to just do a little bit maybe extra on the next project. So I think when I get the paintbrushes out again, I kind of hope to push it a little bit. But yeah,
I know Henry Steele with the cult paint. He loves the Bad Ab War, so. He's always going on about wanting to do some Bad Ab stuff. So
well, that's it. Oh, I saw him do his Titanica stuff, and they're all some talented guys, then,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this guy then. So you mentioned you did a Pedro Cantor, but do you is this? So do you also have a Crimson Fist army yourself?
No, so this was for the boys at SN Battle Reports. So I had a firstborn Marine army from years back, and I kind of lost my way, as we all do. I think we all kind of have those spurts where you just go, "Oh, I'm not in the hobby really at the moment."
Yeah,
and that army just fell victim to me. At the time, I just needed some pennies, and I was going to reinvest it in hobby, as you do, that around that time the Primaris started coming out, and Pardo was just he trusted me to paint some more armies and more of the army, and then make some characters. He came up with an idea for a character series. So this is one of the team, Chris, and he asked me to make Chris into a chaplain. I work quite a lot off of Primaris intercessors. So I think all of the stuff that's been Space Marines, they're all being made out of intercessors. I just find them a really easy kit to cut up, and they give you lots of options. But yeah, this was another one just to work on, and it gave me a little bit of practice again, like to challenge myself to maybe start doing Aquillas, because that was something that I was very conscious of trying to get done. It was another really, really fun project to see from conversion all the way up to painting.
And where is the head from then? Did you say that's
so I sculpted on the ears, the hair, and the beard on that one. I think that was I think he's like a communications guy, but he's normally got all the kind of communication things up and around his ears and under the base of his jaw. So I think I'd shaved all of that off and then just sculpted back on, like I say, all the kind of the features for that.
It's cool. Yeah, I liked that. Well, that's all the stuff that I pulled out to chat to you about. Is there anything, either Ben, that you want to talk about, or Baz, that a project that you particularly want to highlight, or something?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've got some really cool stuff coming, without a shadow of doubt. Something that I'm very passionate about, and I don't think it's too much of a kind of a spoiler, but I've been working on some Primarchs recently. And that's something that I would really, really I can't wait to kind of let people see that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be probably after it's painted. I've got a few personal projects in the kind of in my brain, shall we say. I would really love to tackle a few characters, but no, I think at the moment, I think I would love to just really do a bit of painting. How you swing between one or the other once in a, so I think I'll do a bit of painting, and then it's on to more characters.
Superb. Ben, anything that you wanted to?
No, I mean, I could pick your brains about the process for forever, I think. But I think you're another one of the sculptors that I kind of learned from just by watching how you approach things. And I'd like to say I really appreciate the fact that you post work in progress, because work in progress is such a key thing for people who are learning to see how you got from A to B. And I think painting, sometimes we all know painting in a kind of intrinsic level. We're all taught the process of painting from various videos out there, and there are different ways of approaching it, that no doubt. And as you get better, you can look at a model and work out roughly how it's done, but for almost anything. But most people can look at a paint scheme and think, oh yeah, that's kind of how that's done. But with sculpting, you can't really look at an end piece and go, oh, well, he must have done that first and then that first. And I love the way you talk about your work in progress stuff, and you talk about how you've actually looked at a part and thought, well, how am I going to layer this? Which part am I going to do first? And then once I've done that, what comes next? And then once I've done that, when do I do this? And I find that really, really helpful. But when you work with the models, let's just take Ulrich the Slayer for a start. Do you start with sketches, or is it all brain hammer?
So I'm fortunate in the sense that a lot of people approach me to replicate artwork.
Yeah.
So if it's just a case of replicating artwork, then no. I mean, I don't think I sketch a lot, if I'm being honest. I do a kind of like a few mock-ups with the models themselves. I'll just pin the legs in a few places, and kind of, because I mean, with a paperclip, you can still bend it around, you can still fiddle with it, and you can, and then go from there. The likes of the Corn Lord was just very much off the cuff. It was more a case of Sebastian wanted there to be movement, a lot of movement, and a sense of kind of like a real aggression. So it kind of, I do appreciate these guys trust me a lot with a passion project of theirs. So yeah, I really do a lot of it just kind of feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I think, certainly when I'm building models and from bits, that sometimes you look at it, and I mean, you probably know my background is as a doctor. So I've studied anatomy a fair bit, and I'll put something together, and I'll be like, anatomically, there's nothing wrong with that, but it looks stupid. So off it will come, and I'll do it again. So it has a lot of gut feeling where it's just got to feel right, hasn't it? When you look at the model, it's just got to make sense, and if it doesn't matter whether it's right or not. If it doesn't make sense, it's not right.
Well, I think that's the kind of the natural thing that, and again, that's kind of like the ways I got started into sculpting. Is it was that exactly where I was like, I've got this thing, I've built it, and to be honest with you, it was a case of I don't have enough pieces. I can't just grab something and just do that. So it was very much a case of just, I'll make do with what I have.
Yeah.
And, green stuff at the time when I started was relatively inexpensive. And it still is.
It's a lot more expensive now, isn't it?
Yeah. But when you think like the entry level to sculpting in comparison to maybe painting, green stuff, maybe 15, 20 quid for a massive roll. And then, your sculpting tools at 10 quid and you're pretty much good to go.
Or do what Valbjorn does and use a toothpick.
Or use a toothpick. Exactly. And that's the thing is like, and I do genuinely appreciate that that you're maybe getting something out of my posts, in the sense that I would love to be able to share stuff, and but I'm technologically I'm just not good enough at it at the moment, and I'm going to lean on guys when I can actually, in the sense of actually have them around to my house and actually ask them questions, But no, I find, with Valbjorn, I learned a lot about hair sculpture from watching him do it, and his processes. I by no means do I think because I do it my way, it's the right way. So I'll watch somebody do their way and then see if their way actually makes sense to me. And I think that's something that I would love, because I feel like sometimes people think that it just happens, and there really is no replacement for. It sounds really, really boring, but just get some green stuff, and even if it's on an old kitchen tile, that's another thing. Put it on an old kitchen tile, and if you think to yourself, I'm just going to try this out, then try it on the kitchen tile. Don't try it on a model you spent 30, 40 quid on, and if it goes wrong, you've ruined it. Why don't you try it on a kitchen tile first? If it works, at most, you've wasted about 50 pence in green stuff, and then you've got practice ready for going onto the model.
I think one of the things, perhaps more with sculpting than painting, is that there is a lot of style. There's a lot of people's style. I mean, to the sense that I can almost look at someone's fur sculpt, and tell you who did it to a degree.
Yeah.
And I mean, your fur is a really good example of. You compare it to Valbjorn, who also does fur.
Yeah.
They both look like fur, but they're both completely different, and it's up to people to kind of make their mind up which style they want to go for. And I'd love to sit and watch you do like the fur that you do, because it looks thinner, and that might kind of almost like it's floating in the wind. Like you can like more Games of Thrones, it's almost like there's movement to it as well.
So the reason why that's like it was, and that's all down to Simon Egan, the Forge World, or I don't know if he still works there, but he did a lot of obviously the Primarchs, and it's his fault essentially. it's the same type of fur that's on Leman Russ and Horus. Yeah. And when I saw it, I was like, well, how do you do that? And their stuff is just incredible to see, and it's it's the most flattering thing I can do is try and copy it, I think, and if someone feels that way in any way about some of my stuff or any instructional stuff I've put on, then it may sound kind of, but that really is its own reward, genuinely. And that's kind of why I put so many work in process pictures up, is because I would like somebody to see how I maybe go about tackling the complex jobs. Because so many times with green stuff is people try to take too much on at once, and
they end up smushing it with their fingers.
Yeah, and I still do it. Did it today, but no, you do. You just, it's all about, for me personally, is I break those big jobs down into smaller chunks, and that way you don't have that time pressure in your mind to going, this green stuff is going to start setting in a half an hour. Oh no, I'm running out of time. So that's the way I kind of juggle things.
Absolutely.
Ace.
Brilliant. So what's the plan after your Primarch project then?
Moving forward, so I would really love to get back to some of my custodies. I did a custodian army before the world that was, and I would love to get back and maybe add a few things to them. I have some kind of like some really exciting stuff in the works, in the sense of some really, really talented painters that I would love to work with. So I'm maybe going to put my neck on the kind of line and just approach some of them and just say, should we do a figure? That would be really, really cool. Because in a very kind of greedy sense, I would love to own some of their work.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the hobby is a big world now.
Yes.
And I think put your neck out on the line, or stick your head above the parapet and say, do you want to come on our like small fry podcast and talk about your awesome sculpting? I just got to do it. Well,
it's in the same sense though, but it's guys like yourselves that kind of are reaching out to the smaller parts of the community. And it's great for the hobby, because it just kind of shows how varied a background everybody is from. It's not that kind of thing where it was before, where it was like, oh, I do Warhammer. You don't. It's not that secret anymore, and because it was back in the day. But now it's so open, and guys like yourselves giving attention to artists and hobbyists alike, and I really do. I mean, the Instagram community, which is where I mainly am, if I'm being honest, is it's so good for any sort of kind of creative hobbyists, artists. It's so good. And I would say, pretty much every part of my experience on that has just been absolutely wonderful. So and obviously, like I say, talking to guys like yourself, I mean, that would never have happened if it wasn't for the likes of Instagram and the toy soldiers that we all love. So
I think that's a wonderful thing to say, actually, because so often the internet and social media, I suppose, can highlight the less good bits, I suppose, of community. I think is probably a polite way to put it. Yeah. But it is important to, it's easy to focus on the negative, isn't it? But it's important to remember that actually it has driven a whole load of incredible interactions and etc. that just wouldn't have been possible otherwise, to where once upon a time your work would maybe be shared with the people in your local Games Workshop or local little store, and then maybe if it was really top tier, you might see it in White Dwarf perhaps. Whereas now you can get it out there and it gets seen around the world for people to feedback on. So it is good to remember that.
Very much so.
Cool. Well, I think that would be a great point to wrap up the community section, because I think that's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed chatting through. I think the only problem I have with this is with Valbjorn and now yourself, I'm just wanting to do some green stuff, and I don't normally do any green stuff, and I haven't really got time in my hobby, in my life, to fit more different things in. But you guys are making me, between Ben starting it off and then chatting to you guys, I just want to grab some stuff and have a go. So oh dear, another thing on the list. So with that in mind, then we will wrap up the community and we will head into the wilds.
Hi guys, and welcome to Into the Wilds, where we've got a few things to talk about. I'm going to carry on talking about my role play with experience with aliens. We're going to cover off a bit of Flames of War, and then we might end up talking about marshmallows at some point, which was...
We need to quantify... No, let's just open with the marshmallows. So we were talking about hobbies. And Baz said Warhammer's the greatest hobby, which it obviously is, but I did chuck in there that actually toasting marshmallows would be a pretty awesome hobby.
You could have a whole kind of year working out which are the best biscuits to make s'mores with.
See, that's another level. We didn't even get into that just now, did we? Because we talked about the variations between the mini ones, the normal ones, and the large ones. Different types of fuel for toasting.
And the heat source,
yeah. S'mores. So anybody out there that knows any good sort of Instagram people to follow for marshmallow toasting, let us know, because we're excited.
Chocolate hobnob has to be the winner, surely. Chocolate hobnob.
Oh, yeah, that's quite good.
Right,
I don't know, though. I like an Oreo. A wagon wheel. Is a wagon wheel a biscuit, though? That's the thing.
A wagon wheel is kind of a s'mores that went wrong and became like...
Do they even make them anymore?
Yeah, but they're more like mini wheels. Like
I was going to say, I bet they're smaller. I bet they're real small. Yeah.
Right, so Into the Wilds. We finished off our campaign for the Chariot of the Gods, which was the Aliens one, which was super awesome, really, really cool. That's the starters kit box set. It comes with that in it already, and we had a real laugh doing that. And I think the only thing that I would say is I played it with me Dungeons Master, me DMing, or as Mother, which is quite cool. If you're the DM if you're the GM in the game, you're the game Mother, as in the computer, which I thought was really cool. And I think that it needed the 5 characters, because you give like one of the characters. This is a spoiler alert for anyone who's wanting to be a player of this. One of the characters can end up being an android, and so I ended up having to play that character as well as being the GM, and it worked fine. But it would have been even cooler if you'd had players with individual thought playing that character, and then another one playing the company rep trying to undermine everything, and then it would have been really cool. But it was excellent, and I'm really a fan of the system to the degree that I really kind of couldn't work out how you could play a horror, but they've got because I've never done a role-play horror, but they've got this system in it for stress, where the more stressful things that happen to you, the more stress dice you roll. And every action you want to perform, you roll your normal dice, which would be like the number of, say your strength plus close combat is, you've got a strength of 3 and a close combat of 2, you'd roll 5 dice every time you wanted to hit something. But then as you got more stress, your dice would go up, so you become more likely to hit them, but you'd be more likely to end up in a gibbering heap on the floor, because if you roll a 1 on the stress dice, you have to roll on the stress chart, and if you're the higher your stress level gets, the worse that gets. So you can end up in a catatonic wreck, or just sort of running around in circles with your pants on your head and pencils in your nose. But yeah, it's really, really good. And what I liked about it, looking into that a bit more, is in the campaign, because what that scenario is called is cinematic play, and you're kind of dead clear at the start of a cinematic play session that it's one kind of contained adventure, and you are not guaranteed to survive it. Now, I was quite nice to my characters, but the way you're supposed to write it is that you bring other characters in that the players can take over if you wanted them to. So you're kind of not supposed to fall in love with your character too much, because this is Alien and they could just get wiped out straight away, which was quite cool, because there was one part of the story where they were moving across the surface of the ship, and there was a thing on the ship surface that was actually a abomination, sort of in a spacesuit, sort of just asleep. And one of the characters was like, "Oh, I'm going to come off of the ship so I don't make a noise and float past it." And he failed that completely and was drifting off into space. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm going to try and grab hold."
That Ross?
Failed. Yeah. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm going to use my grappler." I'm like, "This is it, man. If you fail this, you are floating away." And the last character would be like, "Bye." And he managed to make it. So it was a cool moment, because you don't get that kind of stuff, I don't think, in Dungeons and Dragons. There's always a little bit of a second chance, as it were. And if you die, you can be resurrected. Whereas in this, you're gone. But for the campaign mode, if you suffer an injury, that can last the whole thing, and that applies equally to the psychological effects. So you can end up with post-traumatic stress for your character and that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's in things like Cthulhu, but I've never come across it because I don't play those kind of things. But I really liked it. I really liked the way it worked. And I think one of the things I've been more and more keen about in a lot of aspects of our hobby, or science fiction and fantasy in general, is the psychological effects of what people are going through, reflecting on their character. And I know we've spoken about this before, but some of the best Star Trek that there was Picard's after effects of being the Borg.
Yeah.
Where there's a whole episode where he just goes home and has to recover from that trauma. And okay, it's only an episode, and in the grand scheme of things, that is perhaps simplifying things a little bit. But another good example of his character is when he's playing the flute, which is something that he learned how to do when the probe from a species dragged his mind into it and then made him live the whole life of a character, a person,
yep,
as they experience the apocalypse on their planet, and watching, including the birth and death of his children. And that traumatizes him deeply. And every time you see the flute or see him playing the flute and looking out the window, you know that he's remembering those kids that, as far as he's concerned, were his children. We need more of that, because I think it just adds a bit of depth or the depth that is missing from a lot of fantasy and science fiction, where people go through this really horrendous stuff and they're completely fine. And Ripley is almost, for me, one of the archetypal characters that is, especially in Aliens, she's terrified. Yeah. She's terrified right from the start of the film. She's even terrified right at the end, but she still manages to get through all of those things. And it's as much about her fear as it is anything else, and that's what makes her such a superb character. But anyway, I could rant on about that, and that's why we were like super chuffed to support 40 hours of 40k as well, because it's going to campaign against living miserably, which is a brilliant cause.
Very much so.
And so moving on from that, we've started a new Pathfinder campaign, which is going to be cool. I'm GMing that one as well. I'm really excited about that.
Why did you choose Pathfinder?
Because everyone knew it.
Okay. And
it's free. You can get the books as a free PDF. And my brother was getting involved, and I didn't want there to be massive. And a couple of the other guys hadn't got the books either, so I wanted there to be a minimal kind of paywall to be getting involved. And I found a map making software on the internet, and then spent up until 3 o'clock in the morning making maps, because that's what we do, because we're lunatics, right? But they're quite cool. I know, I'll show you some, Baz. They're brilliant. I'm quite
cool.
chuffed with them.
They are good.
It's not Tolkien level stuff, but it's it's getting there. It's good. It's good. It's good. I think it's called Ink Verse. I'll just look that up, actually. No, I've done that. I've absolutely. I don't think I. Incarnate. It's called, with a K. Incarnate. Really, really good. There's a paywall, obviously, if you want access to the full thing, but actually there is. There's a kind of a free version of it, which you do a pretty good job with. Yeah, if you don't mind some limitation. But that's me. And I'm quite, again, another silver lining from COVID, I suppose, is that, I'm role playing with my brother who lives in Glasgow, which I don't think would have happened if it wasn't for learning how to do all this digital nonsense for work, and then for meeting up and painting with people that you can't meet up and paint with. It is a silver lining that I think I'll look back with some positivity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we used to do this. What did we used to do? We used to ring each other, didn't we? And then record each other's half of the conversation on Audacity, and then on Audacity, and then share that. So, which was fine. I mean, to be honest, it was amazing. I spoke to quite a few people who were doing podcasts or setting them up, and were like, "But how do you manage to do it where you record in 2 different locations?" And then when I tell them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's super simple." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's just how our brains worked when we thought about it. Like, we didn't have enough string to have a cup and string, so we did it this way instead." Yeah, so I did discuss in the last time I started looking at Flames of War. Basically, I've always wanted to do a bit of historical gaming of any sort, and I'm very interested in tanks. I like tanks; they're big and so I went to the tank museum. And
that technical description.
Yeah, it is. That is. Yeah.
I think that's what all the tank experts say.
Well, when I was first, when I still lived in Plymouth, a great friend of mine, and he was big into his World War II history, and we went to Bovington Tank Museum, and I just remember being blown away. Like I had been playing Warhammer and playing with Land Raiders and things like that, and seeing Neiman Russes. But then when I walked in and I stood next to a King Tiger, I was just like, oh my flipping days, this is ridiculous. Started to grasp what a tank really was about. And so anyway, I've never actually got round to doing any of that. But Tom, a friend of mine, Tom, and I said this year we're going to paint, even if we just paint one model going to do some kind of historical. So we ended up choosing Flames of War because 15mm is a nice scale for painting, whereby you can get the infantry done in a good time, but the tanks stand out. They're big enough to have some kind of presence painting wise. So we bought the starter set, which it's incredible. You get the two, it's £32 from most sites. I think it's £40 retail, but you get a German force and an American force in there. So you get 8 Sherman tanks and 3 Panzer IV tanks, which is quite a lot, for what you get. So we've got that. Tom's started painting his. I haven't yet, but I have done the typical Dan thing. So they've done a tie-in with Vallejo where they've done some paint sets, and there's a utility paint set, which is 8 colors, and that's like your core. And then if you're going to do Germans, for example, then you get the German infantry painting set, and then that's your cut. Then the two together make up what you need for them. And then you can get German tanks, because the Germans were quite experimental with all their camouflage. There's loads of paint sets for them. Well, I say loads. I think there's 4 actually. Whereas the Americans, where everything was just green, there's only 1 expansion for them. So I've got all the paints. And I spent a little bit of time. The utility set we split between us. So I spent a bit of time with some empty dropper bottles, dividing it out into 2. So we each had both the colours. But he started his, which means I'm behind now. So I need to crack on and get on with that, really. But it's really interesting getting into another game, because it's not as simple. Seriously, their website, their shop is absolutely atrocious. It's just not very good. You get so used to Games Workshop where you go on and it quite clearly says getting started or Warhammer, and then you just go through. It took quite a bit of time just to find the starter set on their website, which is mad, isn't it? Really, when you think about it. And the paints I ended up having to buy from various people on Amazon because I couldn't find the paint sets. And I admit, probably because of the pandemic and difficulties with moving stuff around has meant some of the stores over here, because it's New Zealand, I think, Battlefront Miniatures. So maybe it's taken time to ship and stuff, but it was a lot harder than you would have thought. I would say that, to the point where I almost just gave up. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that I was doing it with Tom, and he was very keen, I probably would have just given up. Which is just mental, isn't it? Really, when you think about it.
I really love that paint set idea, and I love the Vallejo paint sets where they do that. So non-metal metallic gold paint set done. It makes things a lot easier, and Games Workshop did used to do that.
I was just about to say, I do remember the old sets.
Yeah, and you buy the core paint set, and then there was the Space Marine paint set. And in fact, I still have the How to Paint Space Marine brochure that came in, the Space Marine paint set, and I still do. And if anyone wants an example of how I still use that, my Assault Intercessor Sergeant has the eye stripes, the diamond eye stripes, which are on the Space Wolf Captain in that very pamphlet. It had an impact, and I think that's a really cool thing. I think it's a really cool way of doing it, and I do wish that Games Workshop did it. So
didn't they experiment with it again not that long ago with mini pots? I'm sure they had a little pack of they had them on the on the till point.
They were more the kind of starter set, kind of paint set things, wasn't it? It was, but I know what you mean, Ben. It's more like a specific set for. I mean, used to have one, if I remember rightly, it was Orcs. Yeah, it was definitely one of the sets, right?
Eldar was one.
Exactly. I mean, they obviously they can't necessarily do that, but it's something similar, right? For people, as you say, I know you've got a paint set, but I mean, yeah, a couple of more specific things like that would be lovely.
And they've spent the last 3 or 5, let's say 5 years, I think, realistically, getting right those entry points, which we've all been staff members here before, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. Before it was the White Dwarf, and it was the starters kit.
Yeah,
and there was nothing in between. And now there is multiple entry points. And I if you think about if you're a hobbyist approaching something, then how cool would it be to have the painting videos linked in with a paint set that had 10 paints in, and you went, I am going to collect Ultramarines, and then you got like the core paint set, and you could buy the Ultramarines paint set, and then Peachy's doing a video on this. It wouldn't be Peachy, would it? It would be Baton doing the Ultramarines one, but you know what I'm saying. And he goes, this is using this paint set. We're going to paint an Ultramarine. That's all wrapped up in a nice little package. There you go. So I think it's a great idea that they've got, because I wouldn't know a first thing, and I probably dig myself a massive, great big historical hole trying to work out exactly what colour the big red one infantry, the American infantry, had on their fatigues. And then I'd be going through the Vallejo and be like, oh, which one is it, that one or is it that one? And then you'd be on the forums. Whereas if you go, I want the American set, there you go, done. That's brilliant.
I think brilliant. That's one. Well, that's also one of the drivers behind the 15 mil, is because you've got less
to worry about,
to really worry about the ins and outs. And actually, there's an argument that says that for all the people that getting worried about the colours, but certainly in the late war, when Germany was obviously running out of all sorts of stuff, uniforms were coming out in all sorts of colours. Plus then you've got the actual combat element and things like, so there's a Panther tank in Bovington Tank Museum, which is in like a red and ochre camouflage scheme, and the reason for that is the red is the primer color, and they didn't have enough paint, so they were only using it used less paint because they could just basically put this ochre on in certain patches, because they didn't have enough paint for doing it, So, but what sort of unlocked it a bit for me, because much like you, Ben, I do worry a bit about colours for historical, was this Colours of War book, which is by Battlefront, but it covers how to paint, the different types of units and tanks and things like that. And I think there's a few historical, I don't know how well, maybe Warlord do it a bit, but there's a couple of historical places you learn a lot from Games Workshop and all its painting videos and stuff, because they are barriers.
Yeah,
getting the uniforms right and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
there we go.
We've covered Marshmallows and Alien and World War II.
Perfect. That sounds like a good evening.
Very wild session.
Even in front of the telly.
Yeah.
All we need is My Little Pony, and you've rounded off the weirdness.
Joshua started watching it.
It's because it's badass.
That's why, because you told me it was really good.
It is amazing.
Though, to my shame, and I do, ultimately, I love my children, whatever they decide they want to play with. But I was watching it, and it's so pink, man. I was like, oh,
but
Joshua.
Pinkie Pie is just amazing. She's just amazing.
Yeah, no. There's one that's like got rainbows coming out of his ass.
That's Rainbow Dash
flying around. It's just mad.
She goes so far. She creates rainbows. I mean, if that's not epic, then what is?
Yeah. Yeah. All right then.
Learn to love it, man. Embrace it, and it is awesome.
No, we got back to Octonauts for a minute, because I can't be dealing with it.
But the first episode, I realised how awesome it was. Is when they go to tackle this dragon, and they all go up and they're all like loving it, apart from this one called Fluttershy. He's just a bit shy and nervous. Obviously, it's in the name. And they get to the top of this mountain, and they're all trying to beat this dragon. And it ends up they're not doing very well. And then Fluttershy steps in, loses her plot, and she's like, "You are a naughty dragon!" And the dragon's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry." I was like, "Oh, that was so good."
Is Fluttershy the one that has the like little bunnies and stuff that help her?
Yeah.
See, I know too much already.
It's good. It's great. I love it.
See, this is where I'm glad I've got slightly older kids now. So, yeah, I mean, my youngest now is 11 years old. So it's I remember too much of In the Night Garden.
In the Night Garden needs a good old drop pod of salt.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's just
it really
you
does.
just wonder what they were taking when they were making that one up. But yeah.
It wasn't legal, whatever it was.
Oh, exactly. But, no, that's it. Like my oldest now, she's turning 21 this year, so that keeps me worried in a completely different way. But yeah.
I always, whenever I see Iggle Piggle like prancing off into the Night Garden with his blanket, I just think of drop pods. Deathwind drop pods initially.
Drop pods.
That's how it should go.
On the announcement tomorrow, Games Workshop has signed a deal with the BBC for In the Night Garden 40k crossover episode.
The new animation.
Directed by Dan.
Anyway, so Baz, thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Definitely when the world returns to normal, hopefully we'll get the chance to meet up in person. Because absolutely brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, gents. It's been genuinely, I mean, it's just been like the best compliment I give is just like a hobby session where you sit around a table and you talk.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it. Sometimes you talk about ponies, but sometimes you talk about miniatures. But no, it's been wonderful, and thank you for having me. It's really good.
You're very welcome.
We can find Baz as Anfarius on Instagram, or something like that.
Something like
ANPH, and it'll probably come up. And if not, then obviously we'll put his links all over the release post for this. You can find us if you've just come across us on Podbean or whatever at the Two Ps Podcast on pretty much anything. You'll find us there. Cheers for joining us, and we'll see you for episode 68, getting close to 70. Woo!
I know, we've going on a while, haven't we? Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye now.